Hi there. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope all of you have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us for today's enrichment session for SBL. My name is Joanne and I'm the Manager Learning Support at ACCA. Now, just a little bit of a housekeeping here before we get started. Now, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom control panel. And remember to select to all panelists and attendees before you send them through. We will address your questions during the session. Now, before I hand over the session to Sean, my colleague Ryan will actually run through a quick poll with you all now. Ryan, can I have the poll questions?
All right, sure.
Yep.
Yeah, let me launch the poll.
Is everybody in here with us? Are
Here
you
you
seeing
go.
the questions? Yeah. Could you please help us to answer the questions there? Can you all see the poll questions? Can we get everyone to participate?
I think some of the students already start to give their answer. So these are short pools of 4 questions. Your response is highly appreciated. We will actually be using it for our future reference. Close to 30% already answered the questions. We just let us run about 30 seconds more. All right, I think close to 70% has really answered all the questions. Okay, thank you for your time and effort in answering these poll questions. I'll actually end the poll right now.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Sean, an ACCA expert tutor who is no stranger to most of you. Over to you, Sean.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay? Joanne?
Yes, I do. Yep.
You can see me? Everyone can hear and see me? Okay, welcome everybody. We're here for a session on, use my poll, focused primarily at students who are taking SBL in September. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Sharon. So my assumption is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this session has been designed for students who are taking SBL in September. And my whole intention about this session is that you pass SBL in September. This session is scheduled for up to 4 hours long. That will be dependent on how interactive you are. I've certainly got at least 4 hours to give to you, but for it to work, it requires a little bit of interactivity between us. So I'm curious in terms of who's online and where you're from. So let me know. I've got Lakshmi, I've got Sharon. Let me know where you're from and what your name is, and that would be great. And I'll try to interact with you a little bit more. So where are we from? We've got Melvin from Malaysia. We've got, whoa, we're coming in fast. We've got Daphne from Singapore. I'm going to write some of these down. Daphne from Sing. We've got Melvin from Malaysia. Oh my goodness, it's coming fast and furious, but that's great. We've got Farah, we've got William. I'll just write some of these. We've got William from Malaysia. We've got Pepe from Malaysia. We've got Sam from Malaysia. What else have we got? We've got Fitriani from Sing, Sanjeev from Malaysia. Thank you. Lakshmi's from Singapore. Archie's from Malaysia. Singapore. Li Fang, Malaysia. Let me keep going. Welcome, Tiffany from Malaysia. Welcome, Chris from Singapore. Beatrice, welcome. Chun Yi Wong from Malaysia, hello. Eric from Malaysia, hello. Pedi Ridla from Malaysia, hello. Ainul Azmila from Malaysia. Lee, hello. Shuhada from Malaysia. Kenny, hello. April from Sing, hello. Roger Lechumi from Malaysia. Fazida, Malaysia. Singapore, Malaysia. Texen, hello. Noor, hello. Hazim, hello. Afiq, hello. Christine, hello. Amira, Chloe, Jason from Malaysia. Farhan, Sarah, fantastic. This is great. Mun, Feni, Hitet from Sing, Chan from Malaysia, Chua from Sing, Raisa from Malaysia, Amirul, Malaysia, Hanis. Whoa, we've got something. I can't read that one, but someone's from Sydney, the first person from Sydney, but your email is in Chinese letters, so I do apologize. I can't read Chinese yet, but I'm going to try. YK from Malaysia, Farah, Mandy, Ying Sun. So we've got an overall majority of you from Malaysia and Singapore. So that's fantastic. And what I loved there was your interactiveness, because for this session to work well, I'm here for you. I'm here to help you pass your exam. But I can't read minds, and I need to know what you want from me. And if you let me know what you want from me, I can help you. And so what maybe you can put in the chat box now, someone's, may I know it is only designed for the September exam. How about this? Yeah, of course it is. It's just, so from a user to all panelists, it's primarily it's designed for the September exam, but if you know we're building the idea is it was sold to you, you're taking the exam in September, what do I do in these next few weeks? So that's what it's about. But the exam needs for December are not that different to the exam needs for September, other than that December's a bit further away. And there is another webinar session that I recorded last week, and on that session it was more of a general overview of SBL. I'll touch on some of those things today, but this is really about making sure that we are up to speed for the September exam. So no problem interrupting at all, though. Please interrupt away. That's what I'm expecting. So you will gain some benefit if you're doing the exam in December as well. I hope you will anyway. If you interact, you will. All right, so thank you for that. Why then, or what are your worries about SBL? Tell me your worries and I'll jot some of them down and I'll try to then include them in this presentation. So the benefit of being here live is I can serve your needs. I've not just got some presentation that I'm just going to kind of go on at you about. I'm going to give you a presentation that's specific for you. You've turned up live. I'm now back in the UK. I was in France last week. I'm back in the UK. I'm here to serve you live. Yeah, although it is recording. Hello, if this is you're watching it on record, but those people who are here live are going to get a very personalized and dedicated session. So just give me a moment to read through all of these. I'm going to have to jot some of these down. So just bear with me while I read through. How many points to write for the answer? I'm going to write these down, and I will address all of them at the end. So questions would be, first one, how many points to write for the answer? Unfamiliar industry. I'm not going to answer any of these yet. I'm just going to write them down and I'm going to store them in my head. So that's from Mohammed. Beatrice, time management. We've got What is the question asking? PS says reading exam questions, tie them to the respective models. And unable to tie to respective models. I worry that the question given in the exam is difficult. I do not know. I worry that the question is difficult. And I do not know how to answer. Thank you. Cannot schedule the answer time, so time again. What else do we have? Questions about technology and data. You worried about that? Not understand the industry. Again, I'm not going to answer these specific. I'm just going to jot them all down. How long my answer? Thank you for these. Professional skills. Out of syllabus questions. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Tekshen. You might just have to write back to me on that one. I'm not sure what that means. How to start. Oh, I just dropped my pen. Sorry, and dropped my microphone. $13. Don't understand which. Not sure which model to use. How will I know if I'm prepared? So how will I know if I'm prepared? How to be specific to get full marks? Well, I can quickly answer that. You don't need full marks, no, you need 50%. Anything over 50, wasted energy. But I'll write that down, how to get full marks. What to do in the first hour. Great. $17, professional marks. This is all great, gang. Thank you for this. Case study has many exhibits. Can I approach each question? So basically you're saying, does exhibit 1 relate to question 1, etc. 19, time-consuming reading exhibits. So time. Thank you, Tiffany. Whoa. Critically evaluate investment appraisal questions. Professional marks. Okay, I'll talk about that. $22. Overwrite for 1 point. overwrite stroke underwrite. How do I stop this? Fantastic. Whoa, let me just have, I'm going to, do we have to go through technical articles to pass the exam? How to plan my answer. If you're on the last session, it's not a technical exam. You have to have a holistic understanding of what's going on in business. So if you think you're going to pass this exam by learning technical articles, would you survive in the workplace by regurgitating technical articles? I think not, but technical articles are very important to give you a broad, rounded view. So do I need... This is great, guys. I was a bit worried you weren't going to talk to me and I'm going to struggle to fill 4 hours, but maybe we need to book another 2 hours for you. I'm only joking. Plan answers to please marker. Keep, okay, sorry about that. Jason, I keep fail 46 to 49. Well, you've got resilience there, Jason. You're almost there, and we're going to sort you out this time. Anish. These are all great questions. How do I make my answers more concise? What's the best online tutoring service I can begin studying for SBL with a limited amount of time? Well, it's all about planning and organization. I'm not sure, Ryan, about that one. I'm here. I mean, you're on the right place for this, but it's, you know, it's, well, anyway, we'll talk more about it, but most people who, you know, it's about planning. So just think whether you've got enough time for September. It's a bit like an Olympian saying, oh, I didn't realize the Olympics were in July. I know now it's June. What's the best training so I can win the gold medal? It's not quite like that, but in terms of tutoring services and materials, the only tutoring services and materials I would recommend you go near are those that are officially sanctioned by the ACCA. Okay, so the ACCA will approve certain tuition providers. In terms of study material to read and use, really there's only Kaplan and BPP who are official. There was another, but they're no longer official. They've pulled out of it. So be careful not wasting your time with some crazy people online who have no sanctioning of the ACCA. They just sell adverts around ACCA lectures, and if they were good, they would be authorized by the ACCA. Let's leave it at that. Are we allowed to make notes on exhibits if we are sitting a CBE? Okay, so Stella, I'm assuming, are you doing a CBE in September? I'll come back to that one. How to brush up on comments. Wow, this is great. Comments on financial figures. Marking system of the answers. I don't know who's told you that. So Ahmed said he's not sure. Some questions for 12 marks only need 6 points. That's not correct, actually, Ahmed. Some, it's up to 2 marks for each. So I will come back. I'm unable to access your article. Okay, well, you should have access to Student Accountant, Lakshmi. So that's where that is. If you can't get access to Student Accountant, I've got 4 or 5. I'm going to have 6 articles on Student Accountant. So that would be important. So Lakshmi's just saying, I was unable to access your article on the power of visualization to motivate. ACCA Student Accountant, it's all there, Lakshmi. You need to follow that up with Joanne and Ryan if you can't access ACCA Student Accountant. Joshua is a first exam. Well, good for you, Joshua, because you got exempt from everything else. It is different to a university exam, I would say. I don't know. What does the question want? Okay. You shouldn't be spending 2 hours, but I'll talk more about that. So this is good. So just bear with me writing these down because this is important. It is about you, not critical enough to spot the problem. I mean, that would depend on what professional skills marks, Shahida, but that's good. Fantastic. How do I know which info goes to which question? I feel that the information I gather repeat, affecting my time management. Well, okay. I think you're referring which info from exhibits goes to which question? Okay. Stella, hello, Stella from Australia. Is exhibit 1? That's what you're being tested on. Petty Redler, Lakshmi. Okay, and Ryan, are we able to rewatch this session later? As I noticed, you have recorded this session. Is there a specific link? I believe there is, but that is probably something Ryan and Joanne will be helping you more on. But I'm most interested in those of you who are here, so I can serve you the best I can. And thank you. So Joanna's come back and she's talked about the materials. So in addition to BPP and Kaplan in Malaysia, we have an approved partner, SC Online. You can contact Spencer Cheetah at email. Yep, so you've got that. And there's a code which gives you a discount. So fantastic. So that's what you can do. If you are doing the exam in September, I plan just to maybe keep some of my students motivated by giving them a kind of countdown for 2 or 3 weeks as well. No charge for that. It's all free, but you just need to kind of sign up. So I can just put you on a list, and then you just need to do 1 email rather than do 100 emails. And the email address www.seanpurcell.co.uk, and if you sign up for that, I'll send you some stuff as well, just to keep you motivated, just a bit of motivation, because that's what we need. So fantastic. Lots of questions, nothing there that I can't answer, and that's great. So let's talk. First of all, who am I? Well, my name's Sean Purcell, and you are all very welcome. I have been involved in teaching ACCA kind of strategy papers for over 25 years, and I've worked with the ACCA specifically helping them train tutors and run programs in these areas for over 20. Other things about me: I was a founder member of the organization that's Kaplan many moons ago. I'm currently the UK Tutor of the Year, and I've been runner-up for that award a couple of times. And what else do I do? Well, in addition to helping students pass SBL, I also work as a management consultant, talking about many of the things SBL want you to understand. So hopefully I can share some ideas that make it more interesting for you. And yeah, the whole objective of this session is to make sure you are in as good condition as possible to pass your SBL exams. I have been to Malaysia and Singapore probably more times than I can remember. I remember the Bas Mini. Quite a few of you are from Malaysia. I remember the Bas Mini. I remember when the only shopping center in KL was Lot 10, and there was no Petronas Towers. I also set one of the first colleges up in Malaysia on Jalan Pudu back in the 80s, or helped set it up, wasn't just me. Emil Wolf College is on Jalan Pudu, just opposite the Swiss Garden Hotel. I don't think it's there anymore. And I've also worked on, there used to be something called a MARA program for Malaysian students in the UK. I was very involved in that. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is I have quite a lot of empathy with people who are from your part of the world, and please ask me any questions you want as we go through. Yep, you've asked me some fantastic ones and I'm very grateful for that, but I'm not here just to talk at you. I'm here to listen to you, and I'm here to respond so that you are fully confident to deal with your SBL exam in September. This is scheduled for 4 hours, so it's obviously needs to be a little flexible to your needs, but we'll probably take a break, go and get yourself a glass of water, cup of tea, whatever, probably after about 2 hours, if that's okay. Somewhere between 1 hour 45 and 2 hour 15, and then we'll have a quick break and then we'll start again. Yep, so hopefully that you'll forgive me for not being exactly on the time, because I want to be as flexible as possible to your needs. In terms of what the structure of this session is going to be about, well, first off, I just want to remind you what SBL is about, because some of the questions which you were asking me there right at the beginning is linked to the rationale behind Strategic Business Leader and what it's trying to get from students and what you as a student need to prove. I'll talk a little bit about the exam format and style. So we'll look at that. I'll then talk about how Strategic Business Leader is different to other ACCA exams. And yeah, it's a little bit different, but Strategic Professional full stop is a bit different. Why do people fail SBL? And go into some detail on that. I'll go into some detail on professional skills marks, and I think I'm going to also go through Specimen paper, which answers a lot of the questions you asked. So again, I've got a few options on this session, dependent on what you told me your main worries were, and then I want to finish off with what you need to do in the next few weeks. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about would be the rationale behind Strategic Business Leader, and what probably is the best place to start is to start from the position of what the examining team say. Yep, and what do they say about Strategic Business Leader? Let me check, there's nothing coming in, no. So the examining team would say that the exam, which is Strategic Business Leader, is a substantially integrated exam. Yep. So that means it requires you to connect information. Yep. You need to blend it with a commercial and practical focus. Yep. And what you're supposed to be doing here is you're supposed to be connecting this information with the focus on strategic leadership. So you need to be demonstrating how a strategic leader would apply their knowledge in a practical and business related way. Yep. So some of you are asking me in questions there before saying, I don't know which model to use. I don't know which model. Well, models are very useful catalysts to organize our thinking. And this is what a real business person would use. So for example, Pestel is a very useful model to help me structure my thoughts for maybe surveying the external environment. However, If I was in the workplace and I was talking to maybe some of my business colleagues about environmental threats or opportunities, I wouldn't necessarily say political, there isn't anything political, economic, social. I would understand what PESTEL focuses on, and then from the things it focuses on, I would be able to select the most relevant parts of PESTEL and put them in my presentation. So that's what you need to be able to do in your exam. It's not about just taking a regurgitation of the theory. It's about using the theory to help catalyze your thoughts. Yeah. So yes, you could not only use models, you could use common sense as well. And where may I get common sense from? Well, you hopefully have a slightly broader business understanding than someone who's starting off this exam at the basics. So, you know, how you answer a question would be a mix of models and tools. Yeah, it doesn't just have to be one. Or you might just have an opinion. So you must have confidence to give an opinion. Also, remember that it's related to the workplace. Yeah, it's been designed to prepare students better for the workplace. That's the key thing about it. So we're about preparing students for the workplace. And the key thing about this exam is that it's practical. Yep, it's a practical exam. You've got case studies, and in those case studies, you're going to have to take on a role. So you will be always given a role. Who are you? You have to think about who you are, and you have to think about how you would act in the workplace. So for example, if I was talking to a fellow finance person in the workplace, it would be absolutely okay to talk to them in a language which is more of a financial language. But if I was talking to someone from HR or maybe IT, it would be absolutely not okay to talk to them in financial jargon. So you just need to be aware of that. That's what's important. It's a practical exam involving roles play, and it's you demonstrating to the markers how you would behave in the real workplace. So it's quite an important slide. That it's not my words, it's the examining team's words. This is what they want from a candidate who is doing SBL. Really important. Okay, does that make sense? Any little questions on that? Just as we've got quite a long session, and you know, I don't want to leave the questions till the end. So from the examining team, that's what they've said. What do you think? Thank you, William. I agree with you, Beatrice. A very interesting and unique paper. But the thing about why it's been introduced is a lot of technical transactional work in the world of finance is increasingly being able to be completed by machines. Yep. So the robots are taking over the world. However, what robots are not very good at is connecting and synthesizing and assimilating information and working out of all the information we have out there, what is the most relevant. And that's what SBL has been designed to do. It's been designed to test your ability to connect fairly diverse information and make sense of it, because they are the people of the future who are going to be the most relevant in the workplace. Those people who can do super complicated maths, well, you can do that on a complex spreadsheet macro in a second. Yeah, so we're not, you know, great. The machines are going to do that for us, but what the machines can't do is connect information, not yet anyway. How to gain more marks? Well, Chin, just be patient. We're going to talk about how to gain more marks. All you need to get, Chin, is you need to be able to get 50% or more. Okay, that's all you need. Yep, I've had lots and lots of prize winners over the years, but I'm not bothered really about prize winners. I'm bothered about all of you passing. The criteria of success is 50% or more, and that's what we're going to aim for. Okay, and to do that is not difficult if you follow the tips that I'm going to give to you. Really important you follow those tips. But it's not about learning a list or learning a theory and regurgitating it. Because if you did that in the workplace, I would think you're a bit strange. Yeah, you're not very practical, and it's a practical exam. Yeah, and also you need to connect with who you are. So what role are you playing? Yeah, how would you behave like this in the workplace? Always think about that. And sometimes requirements are, yeah, they're workplace related. Okay, so that's the examining team. That's what they say. If I just talk a little bit about why it's been introduced, I mean, I've said quite a bit really. The key things that we've got going on, there's a video that the ACCA have. You've probably seen it if you've you know, been studying for SBL, but it talks about the drivers of change: economic volatility, new technology, changes in regulation, changes in governments, globalization, changes in, you know, technology. These have all led to the accounting profession having to develop new capabilities and competencies. And that's what SBL is evaluating, whether you have or have the potential for these competencies to deal with changes in technology and regulation, governance, and stuff like that in a practical way. Yep. And yeah, so I think it's a fantastic exam, to be honest. And what this has led is that, you know, we've got to have new competencies, and the ACCA need to make sure that people are going to continue to subscribe to the ACCA qualification, and that will be largely the result of its popularity. So the ACCA have gone to industry, and they regularly communicate with industry and saying, look, you know, are there things that the accountants that are qualifying lack? And can we as a profession help develop those competencies more? Yeah, so the ACCA go to industry and they say, oh, well, yes, we do need to have candidates who are able to connect information and able to have a bit of a broader perspective beyond technical finance competencies. And you're going to have to think more holistically about things such as risk, strategy, governance, and also ethics. Yeah, so they're important. So the response to the challenges that the finance function has is the introduction of the SBL exam a couple of years ago. Yep, and it's there to develop more practical business awareness type of skills so that you'll work ready for the future. Yep. Makes sense. So what I've got then is a screenshot of what the syllabus looks like, which I am sure you are fully aware of. What we have to appreciate is the role of leadership. Yep. We need to understand about governance, and we should really be looking and appreciating in the newspapers where governance is poor, and when there's governance lacking, businesses tend not to be as successful, because you might get some power hungry leader, but also you get investors deserting those particular companies, because an investor putting money into a company which exists in an environment of poor corporate governance is more likely to lose their money. So the most traded stock exchanges in the world, number one is New York, very close behind it is London, and both exchanges are not, I mean, they're the most traded in the world. It's not that there's lots of people in London on the stock exchange. People who trade the London and New York Stock Exchange are a global bunch of people from all over the world. But they trade those exchanges because they know there's not going to be some shock announcement and the share price will halve. There's not going to be some crazy leader behaving like a dictator, because the systems of governance in place affecting companies quoted on those stock exchanges make that much less likely to happen. Yeah, so that's why governance is important. So rather than read a list on agency theory, blah, 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 understand why governance is there. Yeah, and also we talk about strategy. Understand the strategic process and what it involves. And maybe if you see a question in an exam, and strategy involves 3 steps: those of analysis, of choice, and of implementation. And a question will normally be relevant to one of those 3 areas. Again, if you look on the ACCA website, you'll see an article or 2 articles I've written: the strategic planning process part 1, the strategic planning process part 2. And that just goes through where if a question asks about this, it's about looking at our internal resources. If it asks about this, it's probably looking at our external resources, but it might be asking us to generate options. And has the business already established it? So is the business, say, AirAsia? Well, you wouldn't say AirAsia should differentiate itself, because AirAsia's strategic position is one of cost leadership. But maybe AirAsia could go into other markets, and AirAsia is big in Thailand, it's big in Vietnam, it's not just a Malaysian airline anymore. And we should also contextualize everything in the context of risk. So risk is necessary for us to make money, but we need to manage that risk so that we don't behave in any kind of reckless way. Technology and data analytics affects business hugely. It's affecting accounting. So when I first started as an accountant, it used to take me 3-4 weeks to close down the month-end accounts. Some of the best companies now, with the help of technology, do that in 1 day. Yeah, so they've therefore got 29 days more than I had when I was an accountant. And in those 29 days, they can add value by giving more insight into what is going on in the business. Appreciate what good control looks like. And it's, again, not necessarily a list. Good control can be the result of how the systems are all set up. So we should appreciate that. In terms of finance, you're not going to necessarily be asked to calculate and do lots of financial kind of problems, because, well, you've done that in earlier papers. The applied skills levels test that. You need to be able to interpret and draw conclusions from the finance stuff. You'd normally be required to use the numbers rather than work them. Yep. So in terms of finance, it's using the numbers rather than work them. And you should also be kind of aware of what's going on in the best companies around the world. And I would always encourage my students to just be a little more curious about what good companies are doing and how they're doing it, and the benefits they get from doing it. So that's your syllabus, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Change management is obviously important, because a lot of the challenges businesses have, technology, all of that requires change. And if we don't manage that change correctly, we could get into trouble. So that's the kind of technical syllabus for which you're going to get 80 marks. Does anyone have any questions on that so far? Okay, thanks, Mohammed, Faye, Sharon. Also, don't just wait for me to ask you, do you have a question? If you have a question, please butt in. Okay, fantastic. All right. So the boxes in red, they refer to professional skills marks, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about professional skills marks. And just to go back, communication, commercial acumen, analysis, skepticism, and evaluation, they represent 20% of the marks. And it's really important that we structure our answer with that mindset of the professional skill being tested. So in summary, this is not a technical exam. Okay, it's not a technical exam. It's a practical exam which you may have to just slightly change your attitude towards. Some people will look at a question and say, what model is it? Is it 5 Forces or it's Pastel? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Okay, the models get no marks, and actually it's not very professional to be regurgitating models in an exam. It's a practical exam. The models are useful in helping structure your thoughts, but I would suggest you do not reveal what model you are using. It's normally obvious what model someone is using when they're putting together a speech. It is to me anyway, because that's what I'm interested in. But you don't need to refer to the specific theory or model. It's about the information that the model inspires you to talk about that's important. Okay? Right, so it's not a technical exam. It's not a technical exam. It's not a technical exam. So let's talk a little bit about the exam format and style and just where we could be tripped up. 4 hours. Ooh, 4 hours. And some people worry about, 4 hours is very long. Well, the examining team and the ACCA don't really want time to be a limiting factor. So to give you a bit of confidence, I would suggest that you have, it's a 3-hour exam, which you have 4 hours to do. Mohammed said, so no definition is required. Yeah, Mohammed, just let me go back a slide just to help out here. It's not a technical exam, okay? It's not a technical exam. Imagine being in the workplace, Mohammed, and someone says, so we're thinking of entering into SABA. And I just would like you, Mohammed, to give me an overview of the key environmental challenges we might have in setting up our bus company in SABA. When setting challenging, what we need to do, we need to look at Michael Porter. Michael Porter is a professor in Harvard University, and he came up with Porter's 5 forces. 5 forces are threat of new entrants. Threat of new entrants relate to barriers to entry. Barriers to entry relate to capital cost, economies of scale, switching cost, legal cost, differentiation. It could also be looking at bargaining power of customers. If customers are powerful, they can cause competition. Could be bargaining power of suppliers. If you did that, I'm looking at you in the workplace and I'm going, what are you on about? Okay, no definition is required. What we need to be able to do is we need to be able to think about what 5 forces might bring up and also what Pestel would come up, but in our plan. And then from that idea we generate from these models, we're then able to come up with practical applied points, which are obviously inspired by 5 forces or Pestel, but it doesn't, imagine saying that in the workplace. People would think, Michael Porter, which department does he work in? I've not heard of him. People wouldn't understand what you say. So it's a practical exam. Okay. So thank you for your question. It's, it helps me demonstrate it's not about, so no definition is required. You got it. Good man. No problem. Why would you need a definition? A definition is an academic's viewpoint. There are different definitions. So do I use 5 forces or do I use Porter's generic strategies or do I use Bowman's clock? Which one? Which one? Doesn't matter. They say the same thing, similar, but you need to know what they're talking about so that you can give practical evaluation of strategic choices. Yep. So thank you for that question. That helps other people, I'm sure. So please keep asking questions like that. Great. So just going back, the exam format and style. It's a 4-hour exam. As I said, it's not a time constrained exam really. You've got 4 hours to do a 3-hour exam. You have 100 marks available, but you only really have 80 technical marks and you only need to get 50%. Yeah, there's only 80 marks for technical content. The other 20 you need to gain through your professional skills marks. Yeah, and I would suggest, and well, from lots of experience, I do a lot of training with tutors on this to make sure they can teach students SBL correctly, and I make them do exams, and yeah, I'm very aware of the examining process and stuff. And it's normally that a student or anyone taking an exam that gets good professional skills marks also normally gets higher technical marks. Okay, they are not mutually exclusive, they are complementary. Yep. So some people say, oh, I'm not going to go for the professional skills marks. I'm just going to aim for the technical marks. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Yep. They are complementary and you just need to get used to it. Only need 50 marks to pass. Yep, only need 50 marks, and we'll talk about how we can get that later and why people don't get them later. There's 12 pages of case study information. That's quite a lot. But we break it down into chewable, manageable chunks, and we'll be absolutely fine. And actually, it's, yeah, for 4 hours, we've only got one case. If you look at some of the other professional, strategic professional exams, yeah, they're not that much shorter, if I'm honest. The benefit you have is they're all based on the same scenario, and as a result, yeah, makes it easier. There isn't a prescribed number of questions. If you're familiar with past papers, sometimes there's been 3, sometimes there's been 4, sometimes there's been 5. There's no reason why there couldn't be 6 or 7, unlikely, but there is no, because in the workplace, we need to be agile. We need to be flexible to what might be thrown at us. So they're all based on the same scenario. Yeah, and that's pretty much what you know, I really wanted to say. It's about combining technical and professional skills and communicating that in a way which the question requires of us. Okay. Mohammed's asked the question, how much professional skills marks that usually students score? Well, how much marks do students score in an exam? That's the same question, Mohammed. It depends. It depends on how much they take the advice of their tutor, really. But a student that scores high technical marks will normally get very high professional skills marks. Okay, because they think of their profession, they think when they're answering their question to gain technical marks, they use the professional skills marks as a lens through which they look at the requirements. So for example, if it was asking for about skepticism, you would be looking at the technical marks in a skeptical way. Okay. Alrighty. How do we relate? Sanjeev, I'm not sure what you mean. How do we relate? I don't understand the question. Sorry. I think, do you mean? I mean, you would in your technical marks, if it, for example, is asking about skepticism, you would structure an answer in a skeptical way. Okay, that's what you'd be doing. Does that make sense? Hazim, I'm having difficulty to digest all the case study information given, looking forward to learn how to break it into smaller bits. Okay, I mean, Hazim, the case study does break it into smaller bits by giving you exhibits. It's important, I think, for us to have familiarity with business English. So people who struggle to read case studies can improve their ability to read case studies by regularly reading business English. Yeah, many people in the UK who only speak English as their only language, they struggle with business English because they read, you know, text messages and they don't actually read any business journalism. And business journalism is written in business English. If you read it regularly, it becomes a familiar way of talking. And if you're familiar with it, you can read it much more quickly. It really is as simple as that. And I go on and on to people about reading around the subject. You know, if you want an easy life and you want to have perspective, that's definitely the way to do it. Depends on what you're trying to do. It is much more difficult, I think, to answer the exam if you're just learning the theory and you don't understand the context in which the questions are being placed. Most questions are of a practical nature. So Sanjeev's come back. How do we relate the question to professional skills marks? How do we know which professional skills to use? Because it says, Sanjeev, if you hopefully been practicing past questions, and it will tell you specifically that this question is giving or awarding professional skills marks for skepticism, for communication, for evaluation. It's very, very clear. I'll show you in a moment, but that's what it's asking. Following up with Hasim's question, to effectively answer the question required, do you suggest we read all exhibits for attempting the question? Yes, I do, Mohammed. Yes, I will talk about that in a moment. I will go and hold your hand on specimen paper 2. I think I'm definitely going to do that now. So I might just have to switch my screen share, but that's what I'm going to do. I do, and we're making notes on them. So Mohammed just said, to effectively answer the question required, do I suggest we read all the exhibits for attempting the question, or read the exhibit relates to the question only? Well, how do you know which question relates to it doesn't say exhibit 1, this is related to question 2. You have to work that out. That is a skill which you are being tested upon. And that is a skill necessary in the workplace. So in the workplace, you don't get an email saying, oh, this is relevant to the environment. You have to work it out. It's a practical skill you need to develop. Eamon, do we need to read all exhibits for answering the question? Yes. Or focusing something, you have to work out which exhibit is relevant. And my advice, I'll show you, I might be making a little note. So just to answer, I'll answer this again. But for example, I would be looking at the requirements, and then I'm going to read the exhibits. From the requirements, I know kind of, is it in the area of corporate governance? Is it in the area of change? And I might make a little note, exhibit 1, this is looking at question 1 and question 3. Yep. Yeah, oh yes, sorry, KY just said, can everyone please send questions to all panelists instead of panelists only? No problem at all. Yes, sorry, that's probably my fault. So all panelists. Yeah, I think it's up to you. I mean, I'll reread the question out, but let me just see where that. Can everyone send questions to all panelists and attendees instead of panelists only? Yes, it would be good actually. I think because it would come up just so that everyone can read the question and it holds me to account as well. So if you send it not just to panelists and attendees, the attendees can read the question and say, oh, I had that question, but it looks like it's going to be answered. So yeah, thank you for that. So hopefully that's all right, Sanjeev. Mohammed, hopefully that's good. Asma says, what if the question specified to answer according to a model, but I forgot about the model as I've come across this type of question before? If you can show me a question, Asma, from all of the specimen papers and all of the SBL questions so far that says using a 5 forces or something like that, I'll give you $10,000 now, because there isn't one. Yeah, so when you say you've come across this type of question before, I'm very familiar with every single exam question, every single kind of examiner report, and that's come. There was something in specimen paper 1 which mentioned a model, and there was one question in maybe March 2019 that mentioned a model, but really that's not that somehow got through the system. The one that was in specimen paper 1 which talked about a model was largely decided that going forward the requirement for a model wouldn't be mentioned in a requirement, so it won't ask you for a model. But as I keep saying, models are there to catalyze your thought process, so they do make it easy to structure your points, but there's no marks for the model, and you're never going to get a specific model mentioned. Okay, it did ask, you're quite correct. That was a new addition to the syllabus. it did not ask you. I'll pull that up, and I'll have to pull that up. It did not ask using the Baldrige model. If you look at December 19 examiner report, it said you could have used the Baldrige model, but you could have used anything else you wanted. Okay, so fair enough. There was a mention of that model, but you didn't need to use. If you look at the requirements of the question, it didn't actually say specifically to use that model. Yeah. Does that make sense? It means me closing this presentation down and opening it up again. But if we, maybe I can see if I've got a copy of that, and I'll just show you if I've got time. So let me just write that down as well. That was a bit of a shocker, to be honest, and that question, if you look at the report, wasn't answered that well by the people that are just like, what's the model? If you can just open up a little bit and think, you know, well, what's the question asking? What we're trying to do here? You could have passed it. Yeah, and a lot of people became tunnel visioned on the Baldrige model. And I get that question quite a lot, actually, Mohammed, about, oh, I don't understand. Okay, just because it's a kind of a model that wouldn't have been maybe seen before. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't become overly focused on it. I'd have an awareness of what it's about and what it's dealing with. If you read the question carefully, it did not ask you to use that model. I think it was like the model might have been mentioned. Again, the overall, the people who hold the examining team to account, so that the people in the ACCA who appoint the examiners and stuff, they don't, their general opinion is they don't want models. It's a practical applied exam. You wouldn't use models in the workplace. Yeah, I mean, you could use the Baldrige model to help describe a situation, but you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Mohammed. It did. The discussion was based on the model, but the question did not ask students for them to use it. I think it was, in a way, I mean, I don't, that's what that question did. It was kind of pushing you to maybe structure your answer using it. That model is on the syllabus, and we should be aware of it. So just, I suppose it was trying to help students from going off on a tangent. But if they did, and it was within the context of the Baldrige model kind of ideas, it would have been fine. So good question. Thank you for that. Okay. So wow, quite a lot there. That's fantastic. Let's talk about tools needed in or what you should be familiar with, so you're not frightened by them. Okay, because this has had the odd problem in the past. I think one where a press release came out. Thought, oh my God, what's a press release? Well, you know, think about when something happens. What happens? What is said? So you need to make sure you are following the request. The request might be for a letter or an email. Might be for a report. So if it's asking you for a report, you just, you know, you need to be doing to from date. You just need to be acknowledging the request. Oh, what does a report look like? Well, if I work for Singapore Airlines and I've worked for Malaysian Airlines, they would probably do a report in a slightly different way, but it would probably say report and to from date. That's good enough. Yep. Presentational slides, really important that you make sure you follow that. If you look at the requirement where it asks for presentation slides, often you'll see that the professional skills marks there are for communication. If you don't do slides, you lose all of your professional skills marks, because I asked you to do a slide, you didn't do a slide, no professional skills marks. So you can really get killed on not following that format. So you've got to keep it, you know, under control. You might be asked, I mean, there was something in a specimen exam about a heat map, and everyone's thinking, oh my God, what's a heat map? Well, there were, you know, just an attempt. There is not one heat map you could use. It was a kind of, you know, doing a risk analysis, really. A briefing note, what does that look like? Well, title it briefing note. Yep. or a working paper. Now this one, a lot of people didn't know what this was, a press release. Well, surely you might have seen a press release before where something happens, you know, the COVID at the moment, look, please, this is, or there's been a crash, look, there's been an airline crash, we don't have many details, but our thoughts are with the family, and if you need information, it's just like a very clear, structured communication about what's going on. So there might be a profits warning. We are announcing that our budgeted profits are likely to be lower. This is being caused by changes in the environment, particularly by the COVID-19, which has led to 50%, you know, just a press release. It's a communication to the broader public. You have been asked for a project initiation document. That's obviously quite linked to project management. But yeah, so make sure that you pay attention to what you're asked to talk via. Yeah, that's emphasizing the work-based approach as you would in the workplace. Mohammed says, how to write if the question requires students to prepare an extract of a report? Well, how would you do that, Mohammed? If it asks for an extract of a report, what would you start it with? Oops, sorry. Any idea? Anyone help Mohammed out? It asks for an extract of a report. What would you title your answer? No idea? Come on, guys, have a go, have a go. I would write FOA and subject. FOA? Yeah, report, extract from a report to from date. Just acknowledge, it asks you for an extract of a report. Would you title it press release? Would you title it presentational slide? Or would you title it extract from a report? Our dealer says straight to the answer because it says extract. Well, in the workplace, that would be acceptable, our dealer. But yeah, I would mention it's an extract from a report to, you know, the board. Yeah, yeah, I extract from a report. It's not the full report. I would acknowledge that, but I think you just need. It says do an extract from a report. So what do I do? Do I do a press release? Do I do a letter? Do I do an email? Do I do a memo? Or do I title it extract from report? Yeah, exactly, Lakshmi. So Lakshmi says extract from a report is titled brief, concise points from the report. That's what we would do. So fantastic. Thank you. So if there's a need for introduction and conclusion, is there a need for introduction and conclusion? I think you've got to be careful on introduction and conclusion. As a general answer to that one, Asma, they do take quite a bit of time up. It would be professional to give a brief introduction. So introduction, say what you're going to say. Conclusion, say what you've said. I wouldn't go too much more than that. Okay, because it's not normally, there might be a mark or two, but no more than that. Yeah, Eric, I would, yeah, exactly. I would do that. I mean, you need to become, no, it wouldn't be. It would be an extract from a report. So if we look at a question, so Eric said, would the extract be shorter and concise compared to a full report? Well, a full report might be 7 pages. We're taking an extract specifically on corporate governance, and we're just going to extract maybe the 1.5 pages on corporate governance. That would be, so you would need to do it like you would do it in a report, but you would just take an extract from a report. Okay, you wouldn't have time to write the full report, but there might be something on a specific area of that report that will be needed. Alrighty. Is that okay, Eric? Okay, I think you've put something in there, yeah. So thank you. Alrighty. So great. These are great. All of these questions. Please, I'm I'm loving it. So I'm really grateful for all the questions you're asking. This presentation wouldn't be half as good if it wasn't for your questions. And hopefully, you know, no matter how silly the question you have in your head might seem, please ask it, because that might come up in the exam. And had you asked it, I could have solved that problem for you, but I don't want to look silly. That there is no silly questions in any of my classes or webinars. Okay, so ask away. I might get a little bit emotional and excited in answering some of them, but hey, that's just me. Just forgive me on that one. So great, that's fantastic. I've got one from Anis. How can you clarify and how much long are we expected to write? The model answers are pretty lengthy for the amount of time. I think just answering that one briefly, Anis, it is not a model answer. I don't think it says model answer. The answers that the ACCA give are of a tutorial nature. They are not the model answer. I don't think they are always of a great style. I don't think they're always marker friendly, but they're not meant to be a model answer. Yeah, they are meant to be practical. Okay, tutorial, help, not model answer. And they're far too long. If you try to write some of them out, they're too long, you won't be able to do it. So just be clear that they're not a model answer. I would think it would be important that you read the examiner's reports. I don't think those answers are always structured in a marker-friendly way. I'll talk about how to structure your answer in a marker-friendly way. KY says, do briefing papers need introduction and conclusion? What would you do in the workplace? Yeah, if you're not sure, ask, would you do that in the workplace? I wouldn't spend too long on it, KY. Yeah, I would just, sorry, I'm calling it KY because that's all I've got. I haven't got a name. There's no negative marking in this. Yeah, it's just acknowledge the request. Yeah. What else? Exhibits have given us meetings, notes, or minutes from the meeting. This is what was said in the meeting. They've given us a website. They've given us a risk register. They've given us newspaper articles. They've shown us spreadsheets, research articles, and a chairman's statement. All of these are exactly the same as you would see in real reports. Yep. So there is an article here about communication skills that hopefully you've read. I mean, just on that point, the ACCA produce fantastic resources for you students to help you pass the exam. The examining team write articles here, you know, the importance of effective communication. I just mentioned a couple of articles I'd written on strategy. There's loads of great articles, and I know from the data which we can gather that not all students look at these. Crazy. I don't know why. They'd rather look at some dodgy online, non-official tutorial thing when the ACCA, the examining team, write these articles. And yet students rather look at something with loads of adverts online, which isn't even official study material. I just don't understand it. So only deal with official and approved learning provider tuition and material, and start at the ACCA website with all the great articles they have. And they do have some great articles on communication tools. Yep. And yeah, so have a look at that. That would be my advice. Fairly simple. Okay, so how are we doing on the old time? We've been going about an hour and a quarter. How are we feeling? Are we still, because what I want to talk about next, I want to talk about professional skills marks. Can we talk about professional skills marks and what we need to do there, and then maybe we'll have a break. But does that seem okay? Are you still feeling okay? You're not starting to feel sleepy? Whoa. Okay. Great. Lots of lovely answers, but I think I missed someone's question there as all those answers were coming in. When answering in the exam, do pencil written answers be accepted, or there is only certain color of pen? Well, read the requirements, KSC. I mean, you can write it in blood if you want, but I would suggest the most practical. So is where you live, is there a shortage of pens? Or I don't know. I mean, you got to remember that your exam written answers are scanned, and you should be writing them in a format that facilitates scanning. And I would suggest that a pencil answer is not going to scan very well. Yeah, and that's why they're saying black pen, because they will get scanned and they get sent as a scanned document to the markers. So, but you can do it in pencil if you want. The scanning won't be very good. The marker won't be able to read it, and you're unlikely to pass. So I would suggest you do it in black pen. Yeah, I don't. So all the marking team want you to pass the exam, but you've got to give them the information in a way that they can mark it. And I don't think pencil is the correct way. We're all okay. Mama says black pen. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to, it's failed. Why did he fail? Because you did it in blue pen. I mean, it asks you to do it in black pen for practical reasons. Then it's not that the ACCA have a particular attraction to black pen over blue pen. It scans better. That's it. Is correction tape really that bad? Well, Faye, if you've got lots of time to use correction tape, fine. But I wouldn't be interested. Just draw a neat line through it. I mean, it is potentially going to cause a bit of a mess. If you think of what you're going to say and you plan it, Faye, you shouldn't be using correction tape. I think what someone asked about a CBE exam, I didn't think CBE exams were taking place. I mean, you've got to tell me who's taking a CBE exam and where. I'm not tailoring this presentation, but is anyone taking a computer-based exam in September? William is. And where are you taking that, William? Stella is as well. You just got to educate me. William, where are you taking your CBE exam? Australia. Okay. So it's available at an Australian university. All right. Well, I think this is available to both non-CBE and CBE people. There are some sample CBE papers, William, that you, yeah, I think so, Faye. I mean, the world is ever changing, but you should be prepared. Going forward, exams are going to be more of a computer-based evaluation format. Yeah, well, you need to, that's a different conversation, William, but there's great resources on the ACCA website. And I think with the CBE, it's actually easier because correction tape, just answering the question, should I use correction tape? There's no, as long as you're reasonably neat, the point I would make, Faye, is you've got to help the marker mark your paper. Now, it's nice if you're using, but some people go overboard on correction tape. In the old days before tape, when you used to paint it on, it doesn't dry and all of that. So be careful, be careful. A neat line, say sorry. Yen has asked, what are the key differences between September 19 and June 20 syllabus and Sep 20, June 21 syllabus? Well, Yen, this is all publicly available information that you can see on the ACCA website. I'm not sure if you've got access to the ACCA website, but it's all there. The September 19 and June have gone. It's a practical exam. It's not a technical exam. So there's the odd little, there's overall no big difference, Yen, is what I'd say. Yeah, but if you're reading what the examiner is saying, you'll see there's no changes really. There's the odd little addition. What Well, again, from PS, according to the good corporate governance practice, number of NEDs should be at least the same as number of NEDs. Let's say, well, yes, PS, fine, but if you read reports, you will see that in most top companies in the UK, the number of NEDs far exceeds the number of executives. Okay, and that's, it's not mandatory. Corporate governance isn't, well, it is in America, it's more rules based in America. In the UK, it's principles based. And again, it's about practical understanding of corporate governance, not learning whether it's 4 or 3 or 2 or 5. It's about, well, what is the principle here? And the principle is, if we have more NEDs than executives, the NEDs are the representative of the owners, the shareholders, so therefore it would be appropriate to have more owner representatives than executives, so therefore the owners have more of a voice because they run the company. Sorry, they own the company, the executives run the company. Yeah, so try to understand holistically what's going on. Don't say, is it 5 or is it 4? It depends on how many execs are there. If you look at the top companies in the UK, they normally have maybe a finance director and a CEO, and everyone else on the main board are non-executive directors. Now, that's not the law, but that would be good practice. So having an odd number of directors, I wouldn't, it's not about learning stuff, it's about understanding. Yeah, and the thing you need to understand is that corporate governance is about protecting the company in the interest of the owners whilst maintaining the motivation of the people running it. Okay, so Vivian gets a bit panicky by verbs. You look at those verbs, look at examiners' reports. Are the verbs important? Yes, they are, Vivian. Very, very important. If you're evaluating, you give both sides. There's this, but there's also this. There's this and there's this. If it's asking you to assess, again, similar. What do you think? Is it good or is it bad? So verbs are important. And we take each of them as it comes. Okay, let me have a little chat with you about professional skills marks and professionalism. And so before I go into the details of professional skills marks, I just want to talk briefly about professionalism. Again, hopefully, if you've gone on the ACCA website, there is an article written about professional skills marks and professionalism. So I would suggest that you read it. So professional skills, as I said, are 20% of the exam, but and there's 5 key professional skills. But students are also going to be judged on their overall professionalism in writing answers. If I'm honest, there's not huge amounts of marks in professionalism, but it can make a difference. So in terms of professionalism, it's going to be indicated by the following. What you need to make sure is you're making the most important or crucial points. Yeah. So what this is designed to do is, if you can answer lots of weaker points and gain all the technical marks, but you miss some of the most important points, that gives the markers scope to give those students that give the crucial points maybe a couple more professional skills marks than those that don't. We are splitting hairs, but it's 1 or 2 marks, but make sure you do that. Also, the strategic professional level is about integration. Yep, and it's the fact that you get marks for showing a clear understanding of the underlying issues is you're able to link all the different information in the exhibits from different sources. Weaker candidates often don't do this. So again, I think it's really important if you read decent business journalism so that you can get a better commercial perspective. Only making relevant points. So some students just give like a machine gun attack of lots and lots of points. If you did that in the workplace as your boss, I'm kind of falling asleep, and it's not tolerated in the workplace. There's no negative marking. It's about getting your points across in a succinct and more distilled way. Students who get all the professional skills marks don't repeat their points. Yeah, that wouldn't be accepted in the workplace. You're not going to gain as many professional skills marks if you're repeating marks. You could potentially lose all the professional skills marks if you don't address the requirements asked. I've said to you already, if it asks you, to do slides and you don't do slides and marks or for communication, you're dead. So watch out for that. I've got a question from Heng. If a question with 20 marks and a point can have a maximum of 2 marks each if well elaborated, okay. Would you advise trying? Well, I'll talk more about that, Heng. It depends how good your ability to elaborate is, and I would be prudent, I think, in my answering, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Okay, it's unusual to get 20 marks, if I'm honest. They're broken down a bit more than that. But your general point about, and Heng, you're sending it to all panelists. Can you send it to all panelists and attendees just going forward? We agreed that so everyone can see your question. So Heng has said for the attendees, if a question with 20 marks and a point, can you have a maximum of 2 marks each? Well, you can, but as long as you're confident and you've had feedback that you're good at elaborating your points. Would you advise the answer to the question with exactly 10 points? No, I wouldn't. I would, that's because you might just get 1 for some of them. I might try to make 11 or 12 if I could, yes. So yeah, thank you, Heng, thank you. Other points on professionalism, can you prioritize things? So, again, not everything is going to be kind of as important as the other thing. So can you build an argument rather than just randomly put things down? That's what that's about, really. Can you build up an argument? So can you prioritize and make them in a logical way like you would in the workplace? Can you structure it in a professional manner? Well, that would be about format, would be about style, would be about headings. As I've said, if you don't adopt the appropriate format, you are going to be in trouble. If you're asked to ask as a CFO, you talk like a CFO, you would back up your argument with financial stuff because that's what a CFO would do. But you have to decide which role you are doing. What is important from previous exams? Well, you just have to have a good understanding. So what do I need to learn? Which ratios do I need to learn? Well, you need to understand them. So if there was high gearing and the business was looking at acquiring more debt, well, that could be a problem, couldn't it? It could be more costly, or maybe you can't get the debt because your gearing is already high. So that's all that's about, really. Don't get too worried about that. So it doesn't mean lots of references to theory is my point, but the way in which you put your argument together, you definitely know a little bit about what's been said in previous exams. And in terms of the final point, you can demonstrate professionalism. Now, it's not about being, I think the ACCA, it's not about being grammatically eloquent. Okay, and ACCA appreciates that a lot of people are not taking this exam in their first language. English won't be their first language. But so I'm not bothered if your spelling is wrong and all the rest of it, but try to understand the way in which a business person would put an argument in a persuasive and convincing way. Yeah, and you'll often see that if you read these things from real practical life. So there's no negative marking. Yep, it just means that if you don't adopt these professionalism points, you're not going to get all the professional skills marks. Even if you've done a really good answer, you repeated your points, I can't give you 100% professional skills marks. Okay, let me deal with the separate points individually now then. So we're going to look at each of the 5 separate professional skills, and after that we're then going to have a little break. But if we look at each of these professional skills, we need to for each one, understand the meaning of them, and I'm going to give you some little things to remember against each one. So 3 discrete aspects. I think it's also worth you looking at the answers and looking at how candidates who scored all of the marks, what they included, and those that scored none at all, what they included. So you will see, if you look in the answers, you see a grid. And in this grid, it's got not at all, not so well, quite well, and very well. You obviously don't get given this in the exam, but if you reflect on it, it gives you a good idea about what a good candidate does and what a not so good candidate does. Yeah, so have a look at that. So let's have the professional skills, just to remind me or remind you, it's about skepticism, commercial acumen, analysis, communication, and evaluation. Okay, that's what they're about. Let's look at each one in turn. So we need to read the article as well on this that explains it in more detail. But if it's talking about communication, what would be going through my mind? Well, I'd be thinking about inform. Yep. So be sensitive to cultural differences. Use appropriate media. So to think about that. In terms of persuade, good argument. Yep. And clarify. So inform, persuade, and clarify. Yeah, the appropriate tone. Yeah, who is the audience? If it is a fellow finance person, your tone would be different to if they were someone from HR. So inform, persuade, and clarify. That's what's going through my mind when I'm communicating. And most importantly, what is the format that is being required? Okay, if it's asked for slides and you don't do slides, you're in big trouble. Okay? If it's talking about commercial acumen, well, commercial acumen, I mean, think about it practically. If I have a cheap Proton car, would I put $10,000 alloy wheels on it? That would be crazy. Yeah. If I have an apartment in the Petronas Towers, would I put an IKEA kitchen in it? Probably not, because that apartment would be very valuable, and I'd probably have to put an expensive kitchen in it, because that would be the kind of kitchen someone buying an apartment in the Petronas Towers would expect to see. Yeah, so does it make sense commercially? Yeah, does it make sense commercially? Think of it in a practical way. So yeah, be appreciative of what's going on, of the the wider world around it. Think about, so demonstrate awareness, use judgment, recommending solutions, and make sure that you appreciate that this is not appropriate or this is appropriate in the context. Yeah. So, does it make sense? Commercial acumen to me would be, would you spend a load of money? I mean, would it be appropriate? Would it be commercially appropriate to fly business class from Singapore to KL? Well, you might do. Why would you do that? What was the point of paying that extra money? Is it a long flight? Could you, not really, but maybe if you could afford it and you were flying from Singapore to London, you might be able, it's a longer flight, it's 12 hours, you might like a sleep, but I'm not sure it makes commercial sense. And I would think that your work policies would be, business class might be allowed to be flown if you fly more than 5 hours. Yeah, because that makes commercial sense, because I could just make you fly economy class, but you arrive really sleepy and you're not very good in the workplace when you arrive. If we're talking about analysis, I think about investigate, inquire, and consider. So let me just pull that. So analysis, investigate. Are we making sure we look at all the different exhibits? Yeah. Are we using different analytical techniques? Inquire. Are we picking up evidence from different data sources to link the information together, or maybe to contradict what's been said? And then consider, when we're considering, we're basically making sure that all the information is weighed up and balanced to reflect what you're going to say. Skepticism. Now, this is about not taking things at face value. Yeah, it's to do with questioning, probing, and challenging. Yep, so talking about verbs, probe, someone might say something, but is that true? Yep. You know, is there something you might use to maybe question the assumptions that have been made? Yeah, so is there evidence to back up the opinion? Yep, can they be justified in what they're saying? So just because a chairman says it, it doesn't mean that it's okay. Yeah. So there was, I think it was in Specimen 1. If you have a look at Specimen 1, there was some comments made. I think it's in question 2B. There was also something in Specimen 2. I'll do that. But yeah, just because they say it, you know, well, you say we're doing really well. Well, no, you're not doing really well because your margins dropped, your competitors' margins increased, your customer numbers have gone down, your competitors' customer numbers have gone up. Why are you saying you're doing really well? I think you're doing not so well. So you need to challenge that information. Yeah, obviously you're not going to be rude about it. Sorry, just click one more. You're not going to be rude about it, but you are there to hold people to account sometimes. A courteous way of holding them to account. So skepticism, probe, question, challenge. So I'm really in my technical structuring my plan through the lens of each of these and thinking probe, question, challenge. If we get a question where professional skills marks are for evaluation, again, evaluation, you will be giving two sides to the story. Yep. So you're going to be, when evaluating, I would think about assess, estimate, and appraise. So let's just chuck it down. Assess, is that really a good thing to do? What will the impact be on broader stakeholders? When we estimate, we look at the implications, again, for the broader bunch of stakeholders, and then we need to weigh up, what's the benefit, but what's the risk? What's the outcome here? I want you to give a considered opinion. So skepticism, commercial acumen, analysis, communication. When we see those things, you should get in your head the following. Straight away, your mind switches on to, it says skepticism, probe, question, challenge. It says commercial acumen, demonstrate awareness, use judgment, show insight. It says analysis, investigate, inquire, consider. Communication, inform in the correct format, persuade and clarify, and then evaluate, assess, estimate, and appraise. Yeah, they are key words that you should be using when you see those professional skills marks. Professional skills marks are not an afterthought. They are something that you build in to your technical answer. And you're communicating to the marker that you're using skepticism or commercial acumen. You're putting in the odd word so that they know. Yeah, that's what's important. I've got a question from Mohammed. How long do I need to write my answers in the slides? I'm afraid it may be too short or too long. Well, if you did a slide at the workplace, a slide is a bullet point. Yeah, you have a bullet point, and below that, there's notes. Yeah, so you would do brief bullet points, and to help the presenter make their answer clear, you would have bullet points after that. So that's what we would do there. So that is your professional skills marks. Okay. So, yeah, okay. So the next thing I want to talk to you about, but I think we'll have a little break because it's an appropriate time to stop, is what's the difference between SBL and other ACCA exams. It's, how long have we been going now? We've been going about, I think we started, I'm on UK time here, so it's about 9:10 in the morning in the UK. I think it is 3:30. It's about 4:10 in the afternoon. Is that correct? Just so we're on the, yep. So should we have a quick 10-minute refresh? Yep, so it's 4:10. Should we say, can we get back here by, is 10 minutes long enough? You tell me if it's long enough. I mean, if we get through, we might not spend the whole 4 hours, but I mean, 10 minutes just to stand up, shake around, get some tea, exactly. And then we can come back with a bit more focus. Yeah. So if we can say we can get back here for 4:20 Malaysian time, that would be great. All right, so I'm going to get a cup of tea as well because I've been talking for a while now, and then we'll come back and we'll start talking about what's the difference between Strategic Business Leader and other exams, just to keep drilling this into your brain. Okay, see you in 10 minutes. Okay, gang, I think that's 10 minutes. Hopefully you are all back now. You can still see and hear me, I'm assuming. Fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for getting back. Hopefully you're refreshed. What I want to do in the second half of the session, brief reminder on how Strategic Business Leader is different to other ACCA exams, a little bit about why people fail, and then I want to maybe have a look at the Specimen Exam 2. So if you have that available, I'll put it all on screen, don't worry, but I'll just talk to you in a practical way how I might deal with it. And then what do you need to do in the next few weeks to make sure you pass the exam? If you're taking the exam in December, yes, I'll give you some practical things that you can take forward to then as well. But yes, so let's talk about how does it differ to other exams? Well, I think it goes back to the rationale that we said. And in terms of the rationale behind this exam, I mean, some people say when I first started, say, oh, it's very long. Please don't be obsessed with the times. As I've said to you, it's a 3-hour exam, which you've got 4 hours to do. Yep. And I think you've got more time per mark on this exam than you have on any other exam. Yep. And the key difference to me is the rationale. And in terms of, as with other strategic professional exams, it's about application. It's about synthesis and evaluation. There's something called Bloom's taxonomy. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but it is a level at which the exam requirements are set. Yep. And it's at Bloom's taxonomy level 3. So there's the emphasis on professional skills. It's in so communication, commercial acumen, evaluation, skepticism, analysis. That's what's different. Yeah, and you have to put this across in the context that you would put it across in the workplace. Yeah. Now, you might be worried that, yes, well, you might not work, and you might think, hang on a minute, I don't have workplace experience. Well, that doesn't matter. You need to be able to empathize with how it would be in the workplace. And we do this by becoming aware of the broader business environment in which we live. The other thing, just to add on to that, would be the professionalism which we must show, which again is linked to workplace context. So that's how it's different. It's not regurgitation of technical stuff. It's about the application of that technical knowledge in a workplace context, showing professionalism as we do so. Okay, so that's what it's about. Why do people fail SBL? Well, I'm going to spend a bit of time on this. How long have we've got? So we're about 23 minutes past. Okay, I'm keep translating it back to your time. Yeah, I'm going to spend a bit of time on this, don't worry. So why do people fail SBL? I'm going to summarize it, and then I'm going to look at the Specimen paper 2 and how if I was you, would be going through it. Paddy Redler, that's a new name you can't hear. Everyone else can hear Paddy Redler, so I think top IT advice would be, are you connected to the right speakers? Turn it off, rejoin again. Sometimes that works. Everyone else can hear, so I think it's something at your end, Paddy Redler. So sorry about that, but maybe log out and log back in again, and that might work. So very important, why do people fail Strategic Business Leader? Let's talk about the key things that and this is really, really important. And in terms of why people fail, it's pretty obvious to me why people fail. And if you deal with these issues, you will be in a great place. The first thing is poor time management. Okay. Think of your exam as a project. It's a project whereby you have to get 50%. To get 50%, you need to put yourself in a place where you answer all of the requirements. If you have poor time management, you're in big trouble. I will explain how big trouble you are in a moment. So poor time management, people just don't read the question. They don't plan their answer. If you take a very pragmatic approach and you read and plan what you're going to say, you're going to be absolutely fine. And that reading and planning is in the context of the mark focus, really important. Yeah. So yeah, time management is key. I'll tell you what I would do, and hopefully you would do the same. People don't have great business writing skills. Okay, well, you're not reading around the subject. You're not reading business English regularly. That's your choice. But if you read business English regularly, your writing skills improve dramatically, because the way in which business journalists write is the way in which you need to be writing in the actual exam. And then all that stuff I've just mentioned to you about professional skills marks, for some reasons, people see professional skills marks as an afterthought, and they think it's all about doing it in report format. It's not. Read the marking grids in the ACCA answers, and you will see the subtle differences between a high scoring professional skills mark answer and a low scoring one. So yeah, that's important that we understand that. So let's deal with each of those in a little bit more detail with regards to time management. And pull that slide up. If you do not have a strict budget, you're out of control. Okay, so if you're taking this exam and you do not know, so let you do a quick question. How many minutes per mark would you be spending? Someone said they've taken this exam a couple of times. They got 45, 49. How much time do you spend per mark? Quickly, Bish, you should know this straight off the top of your head. 1.8, Pedro Redler says. Okay, anyone else? 1.5, 1.8. 2.5, 2. 1.8, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1.8. 2.75, Mohammed. 2.4, Asus. Okay, we've all got different amounts. I would say, just going back, so Asma, you give 1.5 minutes a mark. Where'd you get 1.5 minutes a mark? If you don't mind me just throwing it back to you. Could you explain that one to me? Whoa, sorry, I'm just clicking on my keyboard there. I've just gone crazy. Yep. Sorry about that. I just leant on my keyboard too quickly. So we're talking about time management. I've just got your comments. I've just leant on my keyboard and everything went crazy. Sorry, I'm going back to everything. I've just dropped something. Apologies. I was asking Asma, and as I've just wrecked my workstation, they had 1.5 minutes, I think, if I recall. And I was just curious where they got 1.5 minutes from. They seem to have disappeared. It's not a right or wrong answer here. I'm not here to pick on anyone. I'm just trying to understand your logic. So for some reason, yeah, Asma, 1.5 minutes. Tell me how you got that. It was just time answering. You spend lots of time. To be honest, it's not about lots of time. This is a project. So how long is it going to take to build that building on the harbour side? Oh, it's going to take quite a long time. That wouldn't be an answer you would get from a project management person. It would be specific. So you need to take, so Mohammed Maji, you said 2.75. Where'd you get 2.75 from? Tell me, explain. 80 marks divided by 4 hours. Okay, fair enough. So how come Zach got 2? Where did you get 2 from, Zach? 4 hours times 60 divided by 80 hours. You've lost me there. 60 divided by 80 marks. Yes. Okay. That doesn't come out at 2. It doesn't come out at 2, mate. 240 divided by 8 is 3 minutes, not 2. You told me 2. Zach, I'm coming back to you, Zach. You told me 2. Tell me where you got 2 from, Zach. Maybe Zach has had to step away. Okay, let's throw it back. Asus, 2.4. Where do you get 2.4 from? Asus. Just all I want is to understand your logic. It's not about being right or wrong. I'm just trying to understand logic and hopefully get you to reflect that if you don't understand logic, so Daphne, thank you, Daphne. 40 minutes of reading time, 200 minutes to answer the question, hence 200 minutes for 100 marks, 2 marks per minute. Okay, I'm with you, Daphne. I don't quite agree with that though. And I'll tell you why in a moment. 250 minutes divided by 100 marks, Mohammed again. Okay, I disagree with that as well, Mohammed, but someone else give me some ideas. Tan, you can't just say 2.4 minutes. You've got to justify why you think 2.4 minutes. Sharon's got 3 hours. It's a 4-hour exam, Sharon. So she's done 180 divided by 80, 2.25. Okay, 60 minutes of reading. Now you're talking my language, Sharon. Well done, thank you. Wow, Asma, that is a long time planning. 1 hour 45. I wouldn't really recommend that, but you have logic, which is good. So thank you. Yes, Lakshmi, thank you. It's logical. Shuhada, 10 minutes reviewing everything. Reading requirements. You must be a super fast reader, Shuhada, if you can do everything in 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes reading and reviewing requirements, 40 minutes reading exhibits, so that's 50 minutes. Okay. All right, thank you for explaining some of your logics. For some of you, your logic is a little flawed. And for me, the main reason people fail the exam is time management. Some of you do not seem to be well-versed in time management. Doesn't matter, but you cannot enter the exam without proper time management. And some of you were dividing by 100 marks. The 20 professional skills marks take no time to acquire. They are awarded dependent on the style in which you answer. They are not time consequential. They are presentational consequential. So you must have a strict time budget. It's a 240 minutes exam, 4 times 60, 240. Hey, if you want to do an hour reading and planning, that's fine. If you want to do 40 minutes, that's fine. If you want to do 45, that's fine. You obviously have practiced mocks 2 times, and if you haven't, you're crazy, but you shouldn't be taking the exam. I mean, would you take a driving test and sit in the car for the first time on the day of your test? Because those of you who have not done a mock exam to time are behaving that way. And you obviously think, oh, that's ridiculous. What, you would sit in a car for the first time on the day of your driving test? Don't be ridiculous. Yet many people will sit SBL for 4 hours for the first time in the SBL exam, and that is ridiculous. So we need to make sure that we have appropriate time management. So I've got 40 minutes reading. It might be an hour, and you would adjust your actual time accordingly. So take 40 minutes, in my case, off 240. I've got 200 divided by 80 minutes. I've got 2.5 minutes a mark. Some of you were giving other reasons that you gave. So you were taking an hour reading, you've got 180 minutes therefore divided by 80, and you just had a little bit more than 2. I think Lakshmi said that. It's absolutely fine, Lakshmi. That's absolutely fine. So that's what we need to do. Time management. The key thing, as I said, treat it like a project management exercise. Yep. It's a project. We have to, in a project, achieve certain tasks, and yeah, that's what we need to do. So the next thing we need to look at is just a bit more detail on effective reading and planning. So we've got a scenario, okay? As you think you've got a massive piece of pizza, you don't put it all in your mouth at once. What do? We break it down into more chewable chunks. We break it down into paragraphs. Yeah. So maybe you know, have a look at what works best for you in terms of how you break things down. Do you label it? Again, not everyone is going to be the same, but you might label the paragraphs. You might highlight the keywords. Yeah, what works best? It is important to be interactively reading. Yeah, really important. The other thing I think is important, and some of you said this, some of your comments you said to me, let's have a look. You said you were worried about, let me just read, sorry, when I wrote everything down. I worry that I don't know about the kind of case industry. It's not really about the case industry. It's never specific about the industry. And if there are industries chosen, they're fairly, the ACCA are very careful to make sure that they choose an industry that everyone knows about. I mean, to be honest, I think some people get a bit, when SBL was launched, it was launched at a conference in Singapore. And I was part of the launch with the ACCA team. And some people were talking about the Specimen exams and saying, oh, the industry is not relevant. It's a railway. We don't have railways in our country. And it's like, well, come on, be a bit positive about things. I mean, you know, Thomas the Tank Engine is a children's book that you probably are aware of. And so although you might not have a railway, come on. It's something we can relate to. So they tend to be in, and so the thing I'm saying is, what is the storytelling? Try to picture it and make it real. Yeah, there would be key things in the scenario. I'm trying to practically relate to what's going on, and I'll look at the specimen paper, which was about a railway. But you know, we have railways in Singapore and Malaysia, and we have railways in Australia. You know, it's not something so difficult not to be able to picture. So try and make it real. It's not a comprehension. It's a scenario from which you can draw broader information from. Okay. What else? Well, then once we've kind of absorbed everything, we're going to then read the question. Yeah, clearly understand the requirement is a key thing that you need to make sure that you are following. So I'm going to go through this practically, but the kind of things you need to be looking at, you need to be looking at the keywords. Yeah, so what are the keywords? Someone mentioned the verbs earlier. Really important. What is the verb? What's the answer format? Is it a report? Is it a slide? It's going to represent the real workplace. Is it asking you to evaluate? Is it asking you to criticize? You know, what's it asking you to do? And also make sure you follow the rule of and. I accept in examinations, people sometimes might be a bit nervous and they might have a little bit of tunnel vision. And the rule of and is a very important one to follow. So what does that mean, the rule of and? Well, if I show to you what sometimes happens is the question, for example, discuss the benefits and drawbacks of the alliance membership to the airlines in determining its future aims and objectives. So really, if we look at that question, if we forgot the rule of and, sometimes people will just see the benefits. They don't see drawbacks. So we need to break it down. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? Future aims, future objectives. There's actually 4 pieces to that question when we apply the rule of and. And it's very common in exams that students only answer the first box and don't see the and. So again, I'll teach you a couple of techniques that you should follow. And if you do follow them, you'll be absolutely fine. So, and, there we go. What else? Well, your answer, for me, the exam is a project management exercise in mark acquisition. Okay, so think of it like that. It's a project, you're trying to get marks. So if we just go back to the previous question and we think, what are the benefits and drawbacks? If this was, say, 10 marks, what might we talk about? Well, again, it's not absolute, you know, might be, if it was 10 marks, discuss whether the objectives of the directors of a quoted company are likely to conflict with those of the company's shareholders. So it's a governance question. So what are the objectives of the directors? Maybe up to 5 marks, maybe shareholders up to 5 marks, conflict, maybe a couple of marks. You know, there's not hard and fast, but you should be answering your question with the marks as we've discussed there. Okay. It might not be, I'm not trying to be 100% accurate here, but what I'm trying to say to you is there should be an agenda to your answer structure, which is reflecting the marks available. Because what might happen if you don't have this is we spend too much time on the objectives of directors. We should be roughly having the same amount of time on directors as we have on shareholders. And if we're going back to my 2.5 minutes a mark point, 4 times 2.5 will be 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, so I've just got that clear. Yeah. I mean, there is flexibility in the marking scheme. I'm not suggesting to you here that there's absolute maximum of 4, but I'm talking about time management to maximize your mark opportunity. Does anyone have any points or comments on what I've said here so far? No, we're still awake. It's a long session, I know, but I'm here for you. Mohammed says, for example, like a 4-mark answer, how many page long? Do you want to answer that? Just maybe just think about your question there, Mohammed, and reflect back to me. How many pages for a 4-mark answer? What would you suggest? Can anyone help Mohammed out? 8 pages, 16 pages, 20 pages? How many pages for a 4-mark answer? First of all, let's go back to what I've just said. 2.5 minutes a point. So you've got 10 minutes. Can you write a page in 10 minutes? Half a page, 1 page? You tell me, Mohammed, you're asking the question. I'm trying to get you to reflect on what you've just asked. Yeah, let me give you what I would suggest here. I'm going to answer this with a slide. Maybe 1 page. You've got to be clear, Mohammed. I would want 4 articulated sentences. Okay? That's what I'd want. 4 articulated sentences that are separated with subheadings. Mohammed, you're saying 3/4 of it. It's not about the length of the page, my friend. It's about the content of your answer. So I know people, particularly in China, who are very well versed in writing Chinese characters, have beautiful English handwriting, and a page of their writing is huge amounts. Whereas if you've got great big huge letters, so I can't say a half a page, 1/4 of a page. I'm saying if you want to get 4 out of 4, which you don't need, you need 2 out of 4. You need to do articulated sentences which follow the requirements, the objectives of the directors, explain them, and then separate the next point from the next point from the next point. It's not about length of page. It's about nice, clear points. Let me show you. Okay. So you need to make the marker's job easy. Okay. They mark quite quickly. You need to help them mark your paper, and I'm going to show you how. You need to have clear layouts, subheadings, and gaps. If you don't do that, it becomes much more difficult to mark the paper. You need to start strong. So if I meet you in an interview and say, oh, good morning, you go, I think, oh, there's no negative marking, but start strong. Hello, I'm Sean. How do you do? Yep, a good opening statement psychologically sends the right message. White space, really important. So some people, maybe these people are a bit more environmentally conscious and they don't want to waste paper. So they cram all of their answer onto one page. You obviously get a booklet, and if you're doing a computer-based exam, there's no paper involved. So those arguments don't stack up, and I'm joking. But you need to make the marker's job easy. And when we're looking at white space, we could show you this. So the student, has written an answer like this. It's very difficult for a marker to navigate. And as a marker, I'm looking, okay, first point, yes, okay, let me look at the next thing. So I'm reading through and I'm thinking, okay, yeah. Whereas this point, space, maybe even a subheading, boom, 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 bang, boom, 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 bang, boom, 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 bang, boom, 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 bang. Much easier for the marker to mark an answer of that format. Okay, make the marker's job easy. Do you understand the difference? It is marked fairly quickly. Help the markers mark your answer quickly. Okay, you will get marks more easily in that. So I've done this. I mean, the markers are very diligent and they don't miss anything out, but you are taking a risk if you choose to present your answer like this, as opposed to presenting your answer like this. Okay, just here's a point, give me a mark. 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 Whereas here, it's your job, marker, to find my points in this maze of information. It's more difficult for the marker. So give it to them on a plate and they will happily give you the marks on a plate. Alrighty? Do I encourage bullet points? No. When have I ever mentioned bullet points? I said an articulated sentence with verbs and adjectives. It's not a bullet point. Yeah, a bullet point is 2 or 3 words. A bullet point, the problem with a bullet point, Yen, is as a marker, I would not be allowed to interpret what you mean. Okay? So what I mean by that is, I kind of get what you mean from your bullet point, and I think you mean this, and I think you mean that, but I'm not sure. So it'd be far better for you to explain it clearly in your answer, and then I know exactly what you mean, and I give you the marks. So bullet points are sometimes open to interpretation. The markers are not paid to interpret, they're paid to give you marks for what you say. Okay, make sense? No problem, yeah, no problem. Thank you for the question. It was a good question. Any other questions in that area? Okay. Really important also that now we're getting close to the exam, that it's not about learning all the technical stuff. It's about the practical application of that technical stuff in a time constrained environment. Yeah. So question practice is key. If you're not doing this, and I know it's difficult under current conditions about, going into college and stuff, but if you're doing it with a tuition provider and they provide you with opportunity to get marked exams, really important that you take that opportunity up. Yep, really important. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that you do things to time, because you are only really expected to get over 50 on the exam day. Okay, to get 50 on the exam day, you need to make some mistakes, and on the basis of those mistakes, you learn and you don't make those mistakes again. And if you behave that way, you'll do well in the exam. Okay, that would be really important. So my point is you do a mock exam to time. Yep, and you do that without reference to study materials, because as you might be aware, the exam sometimes says, what do you think? And you have to, in exam time, think, well, I don't know, maybe this. Say something and you potentially get something. Say nothing and you get nothing. You also need to reflect that your time management isn't good, and next time you need to do better. Yeah, so it's very much along the lines of the driving analogy. We get in the car, we stall it, we learn whilst we stalled it, and we then reflect on it and we do it better next time. And also, if you're, so the timing, in terms of fear factor, people don't do very well in mocks. Well, okay, that's how we learn. The whole point, I mean, what a great learning opportunity to make a mistake. As I say, we need to get over 50 on the exam day. We don't need to get 50 before that. So a fail is not a predictor of exam performance. Failing a mock exam is a learning opportunity which you can correct those errors and not do them next time. Yeah. So people think, oh, you know, you've got to face up to, you're not going to be brilliant first time. Also, to get good exam technique finely tuned, the only way to do it is to do a mock to time. And if you mess up your timing, well, you won't do it next time. Yeah. And then once you've sat it, you need to make sure you reflect on how it was. Did you feel time constrained? Did you not manage your time very well? Were there certain things you weren't very good at? You know, when you look at the answer, it was just asking an opinion and you thought, oh, is it 5/40s? Is it Porter's diamond? It was just asking an opinion. Yeah. And if you can get it marked, great. If you can't get it marked, see whether you can get a study buddy and you can reflect on each other's answers and discuss what you think is good and bad. Yeah. It's important. Also, if you're doing this on your own, which some of you might be, I think it's really important to look at the examiner reports for the specific questions which you're looking at. That gives you a lot of practical information with regards to what students who sat that exam didn't do very well on. Yeah, so that's really important. Okay, so that's what we need to do. Make sure that's all in place. Sit the exam to time. Most important thing you possibly can do. What I want to talk about next, do I go and look at a specific, well, let me talk a little bit maybe about how the exam is marked, and then I'm going to go and do some practical reflection of the Specimen exam 2. Okay, so if you can, if you've got Specimen exam 2 to hand, that would be great. I'm going to be looking at it in about 10 minutes time. So let's have a think about how SBL is marked. First of all, this is what the marking team structure looks like. Because it's 4 times a year now, you've got an examining team and you'll have a marking session lead who in old terminology is probably the examiner, and they will be held to account by the ACCA qualifications technical advisor to make sure that their exam reflects the syllabus and everything else. So you sit the exam, you write your answer. If it's a written exam, that answer then gets scanned and it gets put onto a database, and there's therefore a database of answers which are then reviewed. A sample is reviewed by the marking session leader, the examiner, and some team leaders. Yeah, so they will then have a look, and I'll go through a question in a moment, and then they will establish a marking scheme, because although there is a official marking scheme with the answer, which will be written when the question's written, sometimes students go slightly that way or slightly that way, and the markers are very fair, and there may be something that the students have interpreted that we didn't expect to see, and as a result, we need to adjust our answer accordingly. So yeah, that's therefore the markers, and you will find these extra little things for which marks are awarded for in the examiner's report. So let's have a look at how marking works. The initial standard, so as I said, the marking session lead the qualifications technical advisor and the team leaders will take a sample of the scripts from the particular exam. So in September, once all the exams have been completed, a sample will be taken and a draft marking guide for that particular exam will be put together, and then there'll be lots of discussion with regards to what marks will be awarded for what, and then that will be finalized and agreed. And then practice and standardization scripts will be created. And these are to make sure that all markers mark to exactly the same standard. So what we then have is we have a standardization script as a marker, which talks about what you give marks for and what you shouldn't give marks for. And the markers will be trained on how to mark the exam by looking at the standardization scripts. They'll then be given some tests without any marks and asked to submit them. And if they come in very accurately, they will be allowed to start marking. If they don't, the process will be repeated until they achieve the standard required. Once they achieve the standard required, they start marking. But every few scripts, there will be what's called a seeding script in the exams, which is a script planted there by the examiner, which the examiner knows what the score should be. And if the marker doesn't score the score that they should be scoring, they will be stopped from marking and will be talked to and said, look, you're giving too many marks or you're not giving enough marks, and the team leader will resolve any drift from the expected mark. So what I'm saying to you here is this is a really, really thorough, detailed approach to marking. Yeah, massively so. And you should have every confidence that during the mark, first of all, the standard is very strictly created. Once it's been created, the standard during marking is rigorously monitored and adhered to. Okay, makes sense? Okay, any questions there? Let me just finish this thing off and then, well, just on the marking, any other questions on the marking there? I've just gone through that in quite a lot of detail. Okay. Alrighty, thank you. So let's just talk, kind of follows what I said before. In very basic form, what are the principles of SBL marking? Well, as I said to you before, Mohammed just said more elaboration means more marks. Only if it's in the context of the question and it's in the style of the professional skills marks required, Mohammed. So it's not just, you don't just get marks for writing, you get marks. I mean, that would be unprofessional. Anyone can write lots. It's about writing stuff which the requirements ask us to do. So going back to SBL marking principles, okay, we've got suggested answers, but they're mainly the suggested answers. They're very strong answers used for tutorial purposes. Yeah, and they're there to help with teaching. Yeah. Also at a strategic professional level, it's not like, applied skills and below. There's many ways in which you can interpret an answer, and it's difficult to write a definitive absolute guide. At earlier levels, 1 and 1 is definitely 2. Yeah, the questions are very basic of that nature. Here it's asking you to, think about things, and there isn't 1 and 1. I mean, it's a Bloom's taxonomy level 3, which doesn't, it requires synthesis. It doesn't require just technical regurgitation. Yep. And you might give something which maybe isn't in the marking scheme, but you can still get credit for that. And often you will find where extra credit is given if you read the examiner's reports. There isn't any negative marking. Students sometimes worry about this, but there is no negative marking. If you get something that's not correct, you just won't get the mark. But there's no minus marking. Yeah. Students also sometimes worry that they're going to get penalized for spelling mistakes. No. Poor grammar. No. Yep. And you know, as markers, they try, as long as it's clear and it's logical and it's got flow, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. So remember that. Okay. What else? Well, also think about, as some of you have already said, I'm thinking, yeah, one or 2 marks, something like that, per point. Look at the marking scheme. I'll show you when I'm looking at questions, just be a bit careful, be prudent on how many marks you think you're going to get. So you'll definitely be in the marking zone. And I often see, you know, people writing a similar answer, whether it's 5 marks or whether it's 12 marks. Obviously, if it's 12 marks, it's nearly 2.5 times the amount of answer to what a question which is 5 marks. So a lot of students completely ignore the marking scheme. Yeah, that's crazy. In terms of the marking, it's going to reflect the intellectual level. Well, obviously, we've talked about the intellectual level here. It's about synthesis, and this is you know, a high-level exam compared to applied skills and below. It's not just about technical knowledge. It's not going to test you theoretical requirements on their own. You need to answer these theoretical things in the context of the scenario. So it's not just to copy points, it's you add value by demonstrating how they apply in the context. That's quite important. So just to remind you about exam levels, don't worry too much about this, but the examiner is accountable, and this is Bloom's taxonomy. There's 6 levels. If you look at the applied knowledge, it's about comprehending and remembering. Yeah. At the applied skills, it's about analyzing and applying. And then at the strategic professional, it's more about evaluating and synthesizing. So you're going to get in this area really, evaluation and synthesizing. You might get a little bit of analysis and application as well. Yeah. So if you just churn out textbook knowledge, you're not going to get many marks. Okay. It's a practical exam. What about the use of abbreviations? Mohammed saying, is it accepted? Would it be accepted in the workplace? I would always throw that question back. So maybe if it's a big, you know, if the company is Wallalanga, Julalonga or whatever, and you just say WG after, you know, Wallalonga, Julalonga brackets WG, that's fine. But how would you communicate in the workplace? Always throw that back at yourself, Mohammed. That's what the question is. A practical exam. Would that be acceptable in the workplace? If it would, fine. But be careful. Make it clear that the markers understand what you're saying. Okay? Really, really important. I just keep coming back to that point. What is being said? Okay. I'm just briefly mention this. I don't want to get into the technical, but a level 3 Bloom's taxonomy is about synthesis and evaluation. You create new ideas from or new insights into existing knowledge. It's not a comprehension. Generalization, comparison, and discrimination, and you know, assess, evaluate of complex information. Use a reasoned argument. Make a judgment. Justify and validate why you're saying what you're saying. Yeah. They are key Bloom's taxonomy level 3 skills. Okay, whee, something just jumped. Right, what I want to now do, I want to just share a different screen with you. So just bear with me a moment whilst I share a different screen. I'm going to share this one. Can't share 2 at the same time. So what I've got here is, I'm hoping, let me just put the chat panel back up because that's disappeared. Chat panel. Okay, first of all, can you see Strategic Business Leader Specimen 2 exam on the screen? That's most important for what we're going to do next. Fantastic, thank you. So that's everyone's responding yes. So I'm confident that what I've got here is okay. Let me just move things around a bit. So sorry, I'm going to be looking down here because I'm actually writing on my screen here. So I just want you to have familiarity. So this is Specimen question 2. This was the one that was about Railco. And just so you're fully familiar, we have here an introduction. Okay, so what would I do? I would probably read the introduction. So the key things that probably going through here, I think it's a public sector company. So in terms of who owns it, well, it's a government accountable company as opposed to a shareholder owned company. And how is it governed? Well, a governing committee, which is the Rail Trust Board, and they have accountability to the Ministry of Transport. Okay, we've then got the build up of how it works. So they've got committees, great. It's also got a national audit authority, which is another government thing. And yeah, it talks about the fact that in recent years it's had negative publicity from a variety of sources. So it sets the scene. It then says we've got 6 exhibits, which are mentioned here. We're probably going to look at each of those exhibits in turn. So I would then move on. I personally would have a brief review of the requirements. So I'm looking at the requirements. How many do we have? Well, it depends on the particular exam, but I'm looking here. So we've been asked to prepare a briefing paper. Okay, so I'm asked to prepare a briefing paper. So that's key, isn't it? So just let me highlight that. I'm highlighting 8 marks and I'm highlighting communication skills. And I'm also highlighting the fact that we've got identify and explain the agency relationship. And I'm also going to highlight and, yeah, and for only 8 marks. So there's quite a bit in that question when you look at that. You know, what would just, you know, give me, as I'm going through this, I'd be interested in what you're thinking. Any comments, feedback on what I've just said there? Can't see any. 3 requirements. Well, you know, we need to break this up. Identify and explain the agency relationships which of the parties involved in Railco and the rights and responsibilities of those people. Okay, so I think there's quite a lot there, isn't there, really, when you look at it. So anyway, so I'm not, to be honest, I've gone into a bit more detail because I wouldn't do this straight away. The first one I'm thinking, in fact, let me just to be consistent, I'm just going to rub out those things now. I just want an overview of what it's about. So the first one is kind of talking about, we'd say, this is more, the first one is talking about probably corporate governance, isn't it? And then it's talking about NEDs. Okay, I've got that one clear. So I'm only going to briefly read it. The next one is, who are you? You're an assistant auditor. You've been asked to prepare a report which evaluates of the passenger survey. So we're talking about a passenger survey and review the actual and relative performance. So that's that one. Part B, it talks about review internal controls. So I'm assuming that there is going to be some kind of exhibit on internal controls. So very quickly here, just getting a feel for what's going on. The next one is you're a non-executive chairperson. What are you asked? You're asked to review the suitability of candidates, okay? And then CEO and talent management. Okay. And then question 4, analyze the information. So we need to go looking for, we need to go looking for the information produced by the financial controller. And then measures and safeguards to reduce fraud. Okay, so I've got that. And then the final one is saying you've asked by the director to write a business case which justifies the investment online ticket sales. Why do online ticket sales? And then this is PID, project initiation document for, so you see someone said about abbreviations, it would be perfectly acceptable to say PID because they gave you one for an online. Okay, so I've done that quite quickly. I've understood what's going on. That's fine. So what do I do next? Well, what I do next is I have a look at the exhibits. Yep, and I'm going to make a note on the exhibits. So if we look at exhibit 1, what do we have on exhibit 1? Well, it talks about the mission statement, getting you there in comfort, talks about the organizational's mission. I think it then talks about the government, it talks about the board. So this is telling me quite a lot about corporate governance relevant. This is, talking about governance. This is talking about governance. So in terms of questions which asked us about corporate governance, which question was asking us about corporate governance? I think in this situation, I think it's a question. So I might look here at exhibit 1, definitely going to make sure I refer to that one. I then have other stuff here about the committee. Again, that's going to be corporate governance. And then the Rail Trust Board, it talks about that. Who are they accountable to? Well, the public ultimately. So it's a slightly twisted question here because it's kind of public sector governance as opposed to what traditional governance would be between shareholders and directors. We then have in Exhibit 2, we have a newspaper report. Yeah. So what's this talking about? Well, it's basically talking about a lot of information from a newspaper. Yeah. So what do we pick up from this? Well, we pick up, if I just highlight a couple of things, they don't make comfortable reading. So what we're saying here is that, the information is not great. Yep. The chief executive said the future is bright. Well, they're not. If you read about this, it has failed to invest in online tickets. People are unhappy. Public is at an all-time low in its perception. So yeah, that gives, it's very critical. I would say this is a critical article. Well, it's therefore public not happy. Also, it's public funded. Yeah, so that's what I'm drawing on that one. So if we go back to requirements, let's have a look. The rights and responsibilities, role, it's not really relevant in question 1. Passenger survey results. Well, we could maybe look a little bit. It's not passenger surveys, but it's a newspaper report that talks about passengers aren't very happy. So we might look at exhibit 2 there. There was something about external controls and failings. I think I might maybe exhibit 2 would definitely be worth looking at there. This is about shortlisted candidates. I don't think so. I don't think so. Internal auditor. This is about spreadsheets. Don't think so. It's about fraud. Don't think so. Question 5. Why an online? I suppose, why would it be a good idea? Well, it might stop the public not being very happy. So I might put in here exhibit 2 as well. Yeah. So just to help me, so I don't have to read them all again, exhibit 3 is all about a passenger survey. It's talking about the difference between Railco over the last 3 years, and then its 2 competitors over the last 3 years, and we can get some relative information there. So let's see which exhibit that would be most relevant to. So passenger survey, customer analysis. Is it going to help us with question 1? Not really. Is it going to help us? Passenger survey, I think definitely we're going to be looking, we're going to be looking at exhibit 3 here. Yeah, probably not so much there. It's not going to be relevant here in question 3. In question 4, analyze a spreadsheet, question any assumptions. I don't think so. We're not going to look at that. Measure safeguards. It's more about fraud, I think, isn't it? Question 4. Question 5. Why investment could justify the investment and customer relationship management. So a little bit of thought there. Planning implementation of online ticket. Well, we could maybe refer to the odd bit, but it's not key. Let's go on to exhibit 4. This is board meeting minutes. So it talks about what the chairman's opening statement has said, and chief executive report on the customer survey. So we could link this. This is interesting, I think, because if we look at the chief executive and what they say, he doesn't seem to think it's quite as bad. You know, he says it did highlight, though, the overall satisfaction target. This was still very high at 87%. Well, no, it's not. If you contextualize it with the report, it's not. So I think we need to link exhibit 4 and exhibit 3 there. So let's just go back to requirements. I'm conscious that some of us might be watching this on a phone. Not the best way to watch it, but if you are, yeah, I'll try and make it big. So that's exhibit 3. Draft a letter, review the effectiveness of internal controls, and what we think. Well, maybe not quite yet. I think we would look at, I mean, some of those internal controls would likely be reflective in some of these things. The fact that the trains are not on time, you've got staff turnover, you've got maybe costs going up, that could be reflective of poor controls, but there are other things as well. But the board meeting minutes, sorry, I'm keep flashing around, but this is what I'll be doing in the exam. Board meeting minutes is specifically required. Where did I see board meeting minutes? It's here, isn't it? So, sorry, I'm reading. I'm trying to read quickly like you, and you'd have an hour to do this. I'm trying to do it in 2 minutes. So, exhibit 3, evaluate the implications of the passenger survey. So we've done that. Review the effectiveness of internal controls using the minutes from the latest board meeting. Yeah. So this is going to definitely be using exhibit 4. That's where the board meeting minutes come in. We then have more of the meeting talking about that. We then have Exhibit 5, which is a person spec. Well, we know that Exhibit 5 is exactly linked to just one requirement, and that was we've got some candidates. Where was that? Yeah, it's here. So this is definitely Exhibit 5 there. And I don't think that is really related to any exhibit, this one. It's asking for an opinion. And then the final exhibit, so we've got CV, again, this is all Exhibit 5. The final one talks about fraud and costs of fraud. Yeah, so it goes through fraud and lots of costs of fraud. So that is going to be very relevant to the this one here. So just to remind myself, was this, sorry, I need to the summary. Yeah, Exhibit 6. Sorry for all this jumping around if I'm making you dizzy. That's definitely Exhibit 6. It's not really relevant, that one. There was a little bit of Exhibit 6. Maybe some common sense there as well. So sorry for all my mumblings there. But my point was, this is what you're going to be doing when you are practically reviewing your session, requirements and exhibits. So that's what I've done. I now have an agenda. Okay. Okay, does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions on that? I'll just wait 1 second while you give me. Is this what you do, or do you, I mean, does anyone have a suggestion that you actually do it better? The full, sorry, let me have a look. Lakshmi says, first to identify the main stakeholders. Why? Was there a question on stakeholders, Lakshmi, or you just want to do that? I'm not sure. I think we have to make sure we are organizing ourselves in the context. Board structure. Okay, Jack, I'm just trying to see what that relates to. Maybe you were just jumping in. In making this review, we'll need to read the full exhibits. We will, unfortunately, Mohammed. Yes, we will. Is it advisable going through a question, identify the exhibit one by one, or rather as a whole? Well, I personally, I find it difficult to digest them in one go. So I'm looking at each exhibit, and then on each exhibit, I'm thinking, well, which requirement or task does this exhibit most relate to? Also, by reading the exhibits, it gives me an overview of the things. So I did throw in, you know, the fraud come into one of the earlier questions, question 4 there, about commercial acumen. Oh, sorry, Lakshmi, maybe I misinterpreted you. Yeah, we just, you know, we've got plenty of time, but we want to make our time. So Hazim says, yes, this technique is better. Currently, I read all the exhibits, then only try to relate the exhibit to the requirements. It's not going to be perfectly fitting. You need to connect all the information, Hazim, but this maybe is a useful thing to consider. Okay, so I'm just trying to make your life easier. This is the objective of this. PS says, should we read the questions fully, then read the exhibits, highlighting? Well, you saw what I did there, PS. I did read the questions fully, and I thought, well, you know what? I'm not going to get too involved in the structure of this question. I'm just trying to get, what's the question about? It was about corporate governance. It was about evaluation of a candidate. There were different things that we needed to appreciate. And as a result, I then structured my answer accordingly. Yeah? Does that make sense to you? Yes, no? I'll give you a second or two just to give me any other things that you might want to say. Okay. Yeah, so this is a technique, hopefully you're now going to embrace yourself. Yeah, I hope so anyway. So if we're looking through the, let me just have a go at what I'm looking at here and see what do I need to do. So this, I think this first question is quite difficult. It says, identify and explain. Just the other, are you getting my full screen? I'm not, let me just click this. You're getting my full screen, you're not getting this mess on the side, are you? Just let me know that you are. Yeah, good. It just looks a bit strange on my screen, but I think it's okay. So we've been on the first one, asked to prepare a briefing paper. So how am I going to break this down? Well, I'm going to break it down as I break down all questions. I'm going to think about the rule of and. I'm going to think about the marks. Yep. I'm going to think about the professional skills marks. So let me just add a page in here. So if I'm looking at this question, I'm thinking about my role. I'm thinking about, let me do it in a different color pen so we can distinguish. So who am I? What's the format? What's the verb? What's the marks? What's the professional skills marks? So let's go back. I'm a non-executive chairman. Yep. So my role is non-exec chair. What's the format? The format was, where did it say? A briefing paper. What are the verbs? Oops, sorry. Identify and explain and discuss. Identify and explain and discuss. There's not a huge amount of marks for all this. Is 8 marks. Professional skills marks are 4. Communication. So inform, persuade, and clarify. Okay. Heng's just come in. Thanks, sir. I suppose these planning will not be part of the 2 hour. No, this is the 40 minutes. So this is my 40 minutes thinking about what I'm going to say. Okay. So that we've started that off. And now we need to think about what is the question asking. Identify and explain the agency relationships. Identify and explain. Well, it says agency. I mean, you know, I'm thinking normally CEO versus shareholders. That's what it says in my book. But here I think it's not the CEO, it's the Railco CEO. They don't have shareholders. Who are they? Who are the owners here? It's probably the government. It's probably the Ministry of Transport. Yep. There's also probably there's the committees as well, who will be, you know, like NEDs, but this is in a public sector. So it's a slightly different twist. You have to think about this a bit. I suppose you could also say taxpayers. Yeah. So if I was to identify and explain, what would be, so just let's go back to the requirements. Identify and explain the agency relationships. Okay, so that's the agency relationships. So, you know, I would therefore need to, on this one, explain what the CEO is to do. The CEO is to create a safe and value for money rail service. These people are the people who run or look after the rail company on the basis of taxpayers. Okay, so by breaking it down, at first I'm a bit confused. What's going on here? There's no shareholders. What do I do? But by breaking it down, I've done that. But that's only part of the question. Okay, so the next part of the question says the rights and responsibilities. Oh my goodness, what is this about? Rights and responsibilities. So what's the rights and responsibility of maybe the chief executive? What would the chief executive's rights be? Well, maybe do it in a different color. He would have the right to, you know, fair pay, freedom to manage. So that will be his rights. His responsibility would be value for money. Yep. I would suggest. Would you agree? And then what about the government? Well, you would have safe travel. You would have, again, reasonable cost, reasonable ticket prices. Maybe you could talk about the environment. I mean, there's all kinds of things we could say, but all of this is going to be driven. So that I'm not going to say much more, but this is just showing you how my brain would work when doing a question. This is all going to be driven via 8 marks. Yep. So remember, we have got 8 marks. So I'm maybe going to say 4, and I'm going to say 4, and I'm going to break down then maybe 2 and 2, 2 and 2. And I'm going to do subheadings for each of those. Okay. So what's the agency relationships? Well, there's 2 parties here. There's the people who are actually managing the railway, and that would be headed up by the chief executive and senior management. And that's who they are, but they are managing the railway on behalf of the government, who ultimately is responsible to the Ministry of Transport and various committees. Okay, so when we break it down to 2, 2, 2, 2, and we only need 4, can you see how it's more achievable? And can you see how we don't go off on a tangent down the wrong lane? Yeah, and the other thing really important that we need to observe is we're asked to think about communication. Yeah, so 2 marks for communication. So just observe it, you know, get the format right, get the structure, get a logical flow of argument. And when you craft your answer in that kind of way, you can see it's not that difficult to do. Yeah? Any comments or questions on that? I'm then obviously going to make my answer look beautiful, and I'm going to reflect exactly what the requirements say. So the first requirement, just to remind myself, and I'm going to communicate it right there, I'm going to say agency relationships, subheading. The key agency relationships are between the senior management team of Railco, led by the CEO, and the government represented by the Ministry of Transport and various committees. So I've started it off. I'm just going to check back to my plan. Explain. Yeah, and so what am I going to say? So therefore, we're going to give a little subheading, the CEO. Explain what the CEO is there to do. Yep. I'm then going to talk about, because I'm conscious, I've got to get 4 marks. I want to get a couple. So what does the CEO and management team be expected to do? You know, run it in an efficient way. Just got to be a bit careful, rights and responsibilities as well. So talk about the CEO, talk about the Ministry of Transport. I might actually talk about the CEO. I would talk about, I'm just thinking, so this is all my plan. Oh, sorry, I thought I was going to raise. Could we, it doesn't matter really what we say, but I might say key rights and explain what the key rights of the CEO are and say a little bit about that. And then I would say key responsibilities maybe, and say a little bit about that. Again, it doesn't matter. It depends on how you want to structure it. But the point I think to make is subheading, clear, subheading, subheading, reflective of the requirements made. And if then I do a similar thing, so imagine we've got another page, and I would do the similar thing about the Ministry of Transport, say about them, I would talk about their rights, say about them, and I would talk about their responsibilities and talk about them. Yep, and that should make me get a pretty decent pass for that. But it must be communicated clearly. Now, there will be other ways in which you can answer this question. I'm just trying to show to you that I broke it down. I thought about what I was going to say. One thing I didn't do here, which I would always do at the beginning when I think about the role and responsibilities, etc., I'd think about the time. And I would religiously write this down there's 8 marks. Okay, that would equal 20 minutes. Okay, so I would write down start if I was starting at 10, and I would write down finish, and I would say 10:20. I might in this situation even break down, you know, the 2 bits into 10 minutes and 10 minutes. So I've got strict control on my behavior. Make sense? Oh, I've got Fenji raised a hand. Can you just communicate through the chat box? I haven't got every single functionality of Zoom open. So as I've mentioned at the beginning, Alice raised a hand as well. I'm not quite sure, Alice, what the hand is raised, but if you could communicate to me through Zoom chat, I can see. For me to open every single functionality of Zoom, I can't see the screen anymore from a presenter perspective. Are you okay? I just saw 2 hands go up. Fenji, so raise your hand. Okay, I'll assume you're okay, but I'm just a bit concerned. There's some problem that I can't see. I can't see anything there, so I hope. Can you just confirm everything's all right, Fenji? Because I think Joanne's just hosting another thing at the moment. I'm just keen that maybe you can't hear me because you're not replying. Apologies, but it is on record if there's something technical happened. Okay, Alice, it's all clear. Your hand went up, Alice. I'm not sure. Maybe you just touched something that you didn't realize. So Hazim says, let's say we exceeded the time allocated, 10:20. Should we proceed to the next question and come back to this question afterwards? Yes. Leave. Do not return. Leave. You have to kind of put a stop loss on your answer. Yeah, I will explain. Let me explain about time management in another thing. So I have. Where am I going to do this? I'll just do it after this. So let me just add a page. So say we've got. This is where it all goes wrong. I've done this, tested it on students. I did this with the ACC a few years ago, actually. I think I did it in Malaysia many moons ago on Jalan Sultan Ismail in the what used to be the Hilton Hotel. I don't know whether it's still there, but it's before Twin Towers. It's for all of that. And it's a classic student phenomena. So say we've got an exam, just to keep the numbers simple. Let's say there's 100 marks and there's 3 questions. Yep, and each question is equally split. So question 1. So what we've got here. This is time, and let's say we've got. I'm just going to make it simple, but this is the principle, and this would be marks scored per minute, and it goes kind of. Maybe that's question 1. And what you'll find is your mark score per minute kind of drops. The first 50 are easiest to achieve. So that would be 1 hour. Okay. And then we do question 2. That would be 2 hours. And then we do question 3. And that would be 3 hours. Okay. Sorry, that's a bit messy. And all we need to do is we need to get 50 out of 100. And because we managed our time and we left at each of these points and started the next question, we just need to get 50 out of 100. Okay. Heng's coming back at me. Even if we properly close a question, if you don't properly close a question, it doesn't matter, Heng. Okay. It's not about perfection. It's about getting over 50%. Okay, so let me show you what you would do wrong if you wanted to. Oh, I haven't done a conclusion. Forget about it. Move on. But let me show you. A student. Oh, I need to properly complete the question. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I could say more, so I'm going to say a little bit more. But what you must realize is your mark score per minute, let me just make that a bit thinner. Your mark score per minute is going to be dropping. Yep. So you're going to go here. And then, so you've spent this amount of time more that you shouldn't be spending. And then you start, so that's question 1. And then you start question 2. And again, you should have stopped, but you keep going. And then you do question 3. The sad thing is you still need to get 50. Okay, but if you do what you've done, you've answered 33% here, 33% here, and you've answered about 5% here. So in total, you need to get 50 out of 70. 50 out of 70, let me work that out. Can't do it in my head, sadly. You now need to get 71.4%. And that is a much, 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 much higher score. Okay, this score here, a well-managed candidate, a very achievable, doable 50%. This score here, you really are now operating at a superstar level of student performance. Yep, if I show you when marks are done very quickly, we would have maybe a, let me do a quick normal distribution. We might go something like this. And if we say that's 50, 55, 60, 45, 40. So, you know, within 2 standard deviations, that's probably, just for argument's sake, but not you, you're in 71, whatever it was, 71.4. You're over here, you're like 4 standard deviations away from the average. That's crazy. Yeah. Why are you behaving that way? Because you don't manage your time. So if you get anything from this session with me, if you manage your time like that, and what you're going to do really strictly is you're going to really strictly write down, I've forgotten where I've put it now, but you write down start and finish. Where did I do that? Anyway, somewhere. I write down start and finish. I'm sure I just wrote that down. Yeah, here it is, sorry. So we write down start and finish, and we strictly apply it. We're unlikely to mess up. Really, 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 really important point. So thank you for that question. Okay. So can we get professional marks if we couldn't finish an answer? Potentially, yes. Yes, you could. It's not about completion professional marks. It's about structuring your answer in what I've said is the most appropriate way. So this next question, again, it's only 6 marks. I've just got a I'm just going to put my I think my pen needs recharging, so I'm just going to start sharing this. Oh, you got back to me. So on what I've just said, does anyone have any questions on what I've just said there? Anything I can add? You must be very strict. You must, don't forget, you don't need 100% answer. You need over 50%. That's the key, over 50%. Beatrice is, why do you not encourage us to score higher than 50%? I'm not saying only score 50%, Beatrice, but the criteria for success is 50%. You're not going to get any more marks or any more credit if you get 60%, 70%, or 80%. Yeah, you need to get 50. So that is the target. That is the objective of the exercise. We can all get 50%. Some people, for example, if I just see whether this has come back again. Let me just share my screen one moment. Some people, Beatrice, would be here. some people will insist on getting who behave like I showed. So these people might, this particular answer of question 1, that might be 100%. Okay, so I've seen people who might get 100%. Oh, that's great. Well done. You got 100%. Yep, but you didn't get 100%. What you got was you got 100%. 33 out of 33 equals 100%. Unfortunately, the exam is marked out of 100, and because you spent all your time doing a beautiful answer to question 1, you got 33 out of 100, which is not 100%, it's 33%. Do you get my point? That's my point. That's my point. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you adopt this technique, Beatrice, you're going to score really highly. Don't worry about it. But I'm not expecting you to do so. If you follow it, you will. But people who become obsessed with perfection tend to fail, because it's about getting a good average across all questions. Yeah, that's the point I'm making. I'm not saying just get 50%. I'm saying if you don't adopt this approach, you're putting yourself in danger of doing a beautiful answer to only part of the exam. And that's, so people who tend to get 45 and stuff in exams, when you review the marks, they tend to do quite well actually, but they tend to get kind of 45 out of 75. And 45 out of 75, if I just show you 45 divided by 75, it's actually 60%. Yeah, so they do quite well, but they don't answer the whole paper. It's not 45 out of 75, it's 45 out of 100, and that's why they get 45%. And it's not that they can't do it, it's because they have poor time management. And I think if you adopt the approach I'm suggesting here, where we break everything down, we think on each one about, okay, on there, probably 2 marks, yeah, 4 in total, 4 here, 2 and 2. That's going to enable you to get a pretty good answer. And at the same time, you're also thinking about the time, and you might even have this one from your time as 10 minutes and this one as 10 minutes. And you've got control, you're in control. Unfortunately, students are out of control. Things that can take longer, if I'm really honest with you, is reading time. And the way to improve your reading time is to read business English regularly. If you do that, you become much quicker at it quite quickly. The other thing I would suggest is important, which, you know, we're getting close to the exam now, but it's still doable, is to have our mindset in the right place. And something that will set your mindset correctly. If you haven't done so, you're going to maybe have to spend 3 or 4 hours for 3 evenings, and that is the ethics and professional skills module. I think even at this late stage with the exam a few weeks away, I think it's very beneficial to getting your mind in the right place. I would insist anyone doing an SBL course with me has completed EPSM before they even come on my course. It's not too late, but yeah, it's really important that you do that. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully, yeah, my pen's working now, so that's good. All right, let's have a look at just a couple of other examples of questioning style. So this one here is a question which you could get really, you can mess up on, and it asks you to assess the role and value of non-executive directors on the board of Railco. So what does a NED do in a public? So what's their role? Their role is to hold the management accountable for their actions. In the same way, if it's a public or private sector company, the role of a non-executive director is to hold it accountable. What are the evaluation skills? Well, of their value, why do we have NEDs? Well, we have NEDs, I would suggest, for accountability, but do they have suitable experience? So if they don't have experience, they can't really hold the management to be accountable. Now, is it relevant in a public sector company? Well, it is, because although it's not shareholder money, it's taxpayers' money. Yeah. So it asks us to evaluate. So just, we need to weigh up whether they have the appropriate experience, and how much do they cost, and that kind of thing. Make sense? Got a question from Heng. In the event we spent too much time on reading and planning in the initial stage, you won't do that, Heng, because you're practicing, but let's just move on. Yes, which is critical. Seeding 40 to 60 minutes, you won't be doing that because I've said you're going to read business English. It will eat into the minutes of answering. Do you suggest, well, you cut your coat by the cloth you have. My suggestion is you do not spend more than 60 minutes, but if you do, you have to then adjust the time allocation for each of the questions. There has to be balance, in this case, across all 5 questions. Yep, so yes, I would agree with you. You do adjust the minutes per mark, but it's not ideal. Once you're going, below, yeah, I mean, time shouldn't be a constraint, but don't be going too much longer than 60 minutes. It has been practiced and, tested on people, and 60 minutes should be appropriate. If it's not, you need to improve your reading speed. Now, other things just to draw your attention to in all of this. It says, well, the effectiveness of controls is fraud. So that was fairly, I just wanted to show you that it's not all about what's in the scenario. So sorry, I've put a few pages in between. For example, I think this question is saying, first of all, sorry. First of all, it says here, prepare 2 presentational slides. And it's asking us here to talk about the contribution which the chief executive can make to talent management. It's like, oh my God. Well, first of all, if you haven't got a clue what talent management is, we need to get some marks out of this. So this is where we need to be fighting a little bit. Yeah. So first of all, what is the role of the chief executive? Well, the chief executive takes a strategic role. Okay. So they're not going to be necessarily opening the envelopes of CVs and, responding. They are at a strategic level. Yeah. And what do they do to support changes? Well, in supporting changes, a chief executive would act as a figurehead, act as a spokesperson. Yeah, they would promote it, act as the champion of talent management. Yeah, so we've not said anything about talent management here, and we've probably got 3 marks in talking about what a chief executive does. But some people would look at that and go, oh, don't know, and leave it. And you've just thrown 6 marks in the bin. Yeah. It also asks you for 2 presentational slides. To be honest, anything reasonable would get marks there. But somebody says, oh, I don't know what talent management is. You can still get around this answer if you talk about what the role of a chief executive is. What's the role of a chief executive in anything? It's pretty much the same. Talent management is about attracting and retaining the best people. That's what talent management is. But if you didn't know that, you still could have got a very good pass on this question. But people who are not prepared to have a go did not get a good pass. And that's not what I want to encourage in you. Okay. This is a good one in terms of skepticism. The chief executive thinks we're doing quite well because we had 87%. Well, hang on a minute. No, you're not, because the competitors are all at 95%. So relative to competitors, you're rubbish. So you don't say it in that way. You say it in a polite way. But I question why you believe we are doing well. You are being skeptical. Yep. My battery keeps going low. So we're being skeptical. And then this one, it asks you anything reasonable. Have you ever, I mean, I always try to put myself in the shoes. Have you ever tried to not, probably in Singapore, you wouldn't do this. You're all very honest. But how do people try to not pay their train ticket? And what would stop you not paying for your rail fare? Maybe there's an inspector on the train. Maybe there's a barrier. Maybe there's a big fine. Maybe you'll be publicly shamed. Yeah. Maybe you could lose your job. Whatever it is, what actions and safeguards can we do to reduce the level of fraud? So, you know, anything reasonable would get a point. But again, it has to be within the context of commercial acumen. So would I put a $100,000 burglar alarm on my $50,000 house? No, I wouldn't, because the house is $50,000. You know, there can't be that much value inside of it. So you have to always put things in the context of commercial acumen. Yeah, so you need to get that point across. We could, of course, do this, but the level of fraud is 10,000 and it's going to cost us 20,000 to save 10,000. Ridiculous. With me? Fantastic. So that was just a brief thing on there. This is now this is another one. So it's a nice way of bringing in the term customer relationship management. So customer relationship management is about keeping your customers happy. Now, this isn't mentioned in any of the exhibits, but if I have a database of my customers, how do I develop better relationships with them? Well, I could email them. I could send them offers. I could tell them happy birthday. I could see when they travel, and I could maybe put more trains on when I see they travel most. They're all things I'd get marks for. Yeah. And this one was probably the only question in all 5 questions where we were actually asked to do something quite technical. Yeah, but we had to contextualize it for rail company. But you can see if you're just going to learn the theory, you're going to struggle, because this is the only technical question in the whole paper here. Okay. So Chua says, what should we do if we totally can't get the cue what the question is asking? Maybe go on to the next question, Chua, and come back later. Okay, just make it clear that you're answering question 3 and not question 2. But what I would sometimes do, because sometimes we're too close, we're right up to it. So I step back and I come at it from a slightly different angle and think, I get it. Okay, so you sometimes have to step out and then come back in again. That would be my tip for that, Chua, if that helps. Okay, what I want to just have a look at before I finish the final bit is I want to go through, in the context of what I've just said, all the great questions you asked me. How many points to write an answer? I think I've answered that. Unfamiliar industry. Hey, there's, you know, have confidence. It doesn't need, you don't need to, it's not technical about the industry. Time management, we've ticked. What's the question asking? Well, if we break it down and we do what I've done, we're going to get marks more easily. Read the question and able to tie and respective models. As I've shown you, of all the things we did there wasn't many models, but models are important to structure your answer appropriately. I worry that the question is difficult. Well, if you believe the question is going to be difficult, it will be. If you believe that you have appropriately prepared and you can deal with this, Usain Bolt does not get up on the starting line and go, oh, these other runners, they look so fast. I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win. Of course, if you have that mental attitude, you're not going to win. So don't think the question's difficult, please. I've just closed all the questions. What else did you say? How long is my answer? Dependent on the marks, a good articulated sentence. Not understand the industry, don't worry. Professional skills explained. How to start with a good, strong handshake. You know, hello, this is boom. So I started the one before about agency relationships. I clearly explained that, yes, this is what the agency relationships are. They are between boom and boom, bang. Nice opening statement. Not sure which model to use. It's up to you what you find best, but there are models appropriate in certain areas. Professional marks we've done. What to do in the first hour? Probably read and plan. Does exhibit 1 relate to question 1? Not always. So we've shown how to do that. Time consuming when reading the exhibits. If you're finding that, you need to practice a bit of time management. Professional marks we've done. I overwrite, I underwrite. How do I stop? Well, because you've got time management. How to plan an answer. I think we've shown it. A plan is for you. It does not need to be beautiful. One thing on plans, if you are doing this as a CBE exam, maybe in December, and I wouldn't put my plans on a scratch pad. I would just put them, I'd title it plan and just say, you know, differentiate and make it clear. For the marker, just do plan and just do a neat line through it. They'll, because if you're a borderline, they may look at your plan. They won't otherwise look at your plan, but if you're a borderline, they will. I keep failing, probably time management. Do I need to read lots of technical articles to pass? No, you need to understand the general environment which those technical articles often refer to. Comments on figures. Well, you need to show and demonstrate awareness of what you've learned at previous things, but you're not going to have to work the numbers. You're going to have to use them. Marking system for answers, 6 points or 12 points. I explained the marking system. What does the question want? I need to spend 2 hours digesting it. Well, that's too long. You need to practice and get confident. How can I be more critical? Well, read some of the examiner's reports, read some of the answers to see how you become more cynical or skeptical, to use the examiner professional skills term. Which exhibits go with which? You have to work that out. That's what the Bloom's taxonomy is testing you on. Okay, so there we have it. Is that useful? I've got more to say, but in terms of just showing you what we do on a question, that's what I suggest we do. We all okay? All right, I'm going to just stop this share. I'm going to have to open another screen. This one here. Let's open my chat panel again, chat. Okay, thank you. So that concludes, that's where we left that one. So what do I want to talk about now? I want to talk about what you need to do in the next few weeks. Okay, now this is something, if you are on a course, that your tutors probably don't talk to you about, but I think this is the most important thing of your exam approach. To help you with this, as I said, if you go to www.seanpurcell.co.uk, no charge, absolutely free, but you have to sign up so I can put you on a list that is manageable. I'm going to send you something to motivate you. Yep, so I'll do that in the countdown to the September exam. Yeah, really important. So, firstly, read my articles on exam preparation in Student Accountant magazine. Okay, I've written a list of 6 articles that go into a lot of detail about how to get your brain into the right place. Hazira, yes, you will get a recording. I don't know, you must be joining late, but we explained you'll get an email and you'll get access to the recording. This was something I think Lakshmi couldn't get access to. It's on the Student Accountant website under exam approach. So really important if you're feeling a bit low, if you're feeling a bit down, I don't want to study. Well, it's up to you. You've chosen to do this exam. Why are you doing it? What's it going to bring to you? You can't just say, I want to pass my exam. It's got to be something stronger. It might be to give you a better life. Some people say they want to go traveling, so they have a picture of the Eiffel Tower. I'm going to be there next year because I'm going to be a qualified accountant working in Paris. Okay, whatever it is. I've got a Ferrari here, so if it's a Ferrari, go to the Ferrari dealership, go and sit in one. Yeah, this is, get the brochure. Yeah, go and smell it, go and look at it. It will be yours when you become successful. But I think you need to have something fairly tangible to aim for other than, I want to pass my exam. Yeah, it's got to take you somewhere. You also need to have a plan to get yourself there. So this talks about how we motivate ourselves, how to achieve things. We need to have a plan, and we need to create habits. Yeah, because our kind of internal kind of drive has limits to how much it can push us, and we don't want to draw on that resource too much. We want to just do it like brushing our teeth, and it becomes a habit. Yeah, so really important that you read that. Read all 6 articles, if I'm honest. I think if you haven't already done so, you need to get your brain in the right place. You need to get study fit. Your brain, like any other muscle in your body, is a muscle that requires exercising so that it works well. Yep. So if you wanted to be a good sports person, you would train. If you just want to keep healthy, you would train. In the same way, we need to be study fit. Sorry, just a plug has dropped out. 1 second while I don't want the power to go off and my plug's just come out. So getting study fit, really important. I'm going to talk more about that, but it's key for me. Students who aren't study fit, tragically, don't give themselves the opportunity that maybe they could seize if they were a bit study fit. They just don't do the exercises to keep their brain healthy. So that's important. What I want you to consider is so some of us have obviously got a career to keep down as well as do these exams. So when do you work? I think you need to create clear parameters of when you work and when you don't work. And that needs to be in the diary. So if you haven't got that, you're a little bit out of control. The next thing I want you to consider is, when do you study? Yeah. Have you worked out when the best time to study is? I hope you have, because we're getting quite close now. So that's important. What else do I want you to think about? Well, I want you to think about when you exercise. Why? Well, when you study, you're going to create, you can be a bit stressed, if I'm honest. And when we're a bit stressed, we produce in our body something called cortisol. Okay, and cortisol is not that great for us, if I'm honest. And one of the best ways of getting rid of cortisol is to counterbalance it with endorphins. And endorphins are what are produced when we exercise. Yeah, so think about that. And most importantly, if you're working 16-hour days studying, well, you will be effective on that day, but that's going to have a big impact on the next day. Yep. So really, really important that you have time in the diary of when you work, when you study, when you exercise, and when you relax. Yeah, some people study better when they've had some food. Some people study better when they've had no food. Yeah. Think about when you're most productive. And if you haven't identified that for the next few weeks, you need to be absolutely on top of your game, and you need to be identifying those things. Okay, so that's really important. What else do I want to say in this area? Well, you need to work out what's important, and to work out what's important, you need a plan. So there are things going on in your life that you maybe don't need to do in the next 4 weeks. And unfortunately, you might need to tell your friends, listen, I've got my exams, I can't do this, I'm really sorry, but I will be there for you in 4 weeks' time. Okay, so get your priorities sorted out. Yeah, it's one of the most important things you need to do. There's something called an Ivy Lee method, where you basically do the list at the end of each day, write down maybe 6 tasks that you want to complete tomorrow and rank them in order of importance. Yeah, so that's the most important thing in terms of what I think is necessary. When are you most productive? I've talked about different people having different times when they're in the zone, early morning, evening. You need to be studying when you are most productive, because that's going to stop you procrastinating. But only you know that. Make sure you study when you're most productive. Get yourself a routine, because for us to study sometimes requires willpower. Okay, and we only have so much willpower in our tank. And once we use up that willpower, it can become quite difficult to motivate ourselves to study. So don't rely on willpower, rely on habit. And that's what establishing a routine is. Yeah, so your routine will occur when you're most productive. You've got to look after yourself in all aspects. A routine would be a routine for exercise, when you go to bed, when you wake up. Yeah, really important. If you do that, that's what athletes do who win gold medals. Okay, you're trying to win the equivalent of a gold medal by passing your exam. And you're going to work out when you are in a absolutely completely in the zone or a state of flow. Yep, and when you're in that zone, you're very unlikely to be distracted or procrastinate. you've got clear deadlines. Those deadlines obviously have to be realistic. Don't set crazy deadlines, but set them with clear times of day when they're going to be completed. That would be most important. So yeah, we need to do that. What else? Yeah, help yourself with little apps. There's something called a Pomodoro app, which is a time management app, which I probably, if you haven't developed fitness in time management, you can help yourself by using apps. Pomodoro is an app. It's free, and I think it probably starts off, if you've never done it before, starts off at 25 minutes. As you become fitter in time management, you might take your study sessions up to 40. But it's a really good app breaking down, and you can concentrate for 25 minutes, then you stop. You concentrate, then you stop, and then you take a longer break. Pomodoro, a free app for you to have a look at. So make sure you do that. Make sure there's some benefit to this. There's a payoff. So you've got a study-free day, or you get some chocolate if you can do this. Yep. So have a payoff. Think about getting your energy in the right place. So you need to get your energy levels up through things like hydration, maybe a bit of exercise just to get the endorphins going. But you really need to consider that, because otherwise, I'm a bit sleepy, and you're not going to. Music can help for some. What about your work environment? Where do you study? Yep. Try to make it free of distraction. That's really important. It goes without saying, but make it free of distraction, and as a result, there's less things to stop you studying. I personally would take a social media holiday. If you must look at social media, you look at it for half an hour a day. It's really caustic on the brain, social media. It takes away concentration. You don't just lose 10 minutes going on the social media. There's actually a concentration lag from being distracted, and pinging going off all the time takes you out of the zone. So it's up to you. If social media is really important, keep it all switched on and risk failing your exam. If you really want to pace your exam, you must get rid of social media for a while. It's up to you though. If social media is that important and the exam isn't that important, keep it on. You make the choice. You're in control. You're the architect of your future. But my opinion is social media, as lots of neuroscientists also say, it's a pretty caustic thing. As well as exercise, think about what food you're putting in your body. Yep, it does. It's the fuel. What affects whether we're successful or not. So think very carefully about that. Lots of white, uncomplex carbohydrates tend to get converted straight away into lysogen. They create sleepiness. So think about brain food. You'll just have to read a bit more about that, but that's really important. If you haven't already done so, consider the ethics and professional skills module. I would insist on people doing it. You're going to have to pay, I think, £60, and then you do it in an evening outside of study evening. You've got 3 hours each evening to do this. I think it will really help with your professional skills marks focus. And then this is great. I've said all of these things, but the main important thing is they actually happen. So this webinar is only of any value. Oh yeah, Sean, that was good. That was interesting. Did you do anything about it? Did you do anything about it? So we need to embrace what we've said. When are we going to do it? We're going to start today. Yep. We're going to break our lives into manageable chunks, which involve exercise, time with friends, time working, and time studying, and time relaxing. Yep. If it's all getting, we can help exercise our brain. This is a free app if you've got an individual Spotify account, Headspace, but there's lots of other mindfulness apps, but Headspace is free with Spotify. Think about exercise and diet. Have a picture of the prize on the wall. Yep. This is what I'm going to get when I pass my exam. Yep. So what have we talked about? We've talked about what Strategic Business Leader is. We've talked about the format. We've talked about the difference, talked about why people fail, and I've shown you that in the context of a real exam, and we've talked about what we need to do in the next few weeks. I'd like to wish you all the very, very best of luck. I can, you've asked a lot of questions at the beginning. If you have, I'll keep on for another few minutes to answer any other questions, but hopefully by getting you to ask all the questions up front, I've managed to answer them all. And it's really important that you look after yourself for the next 4 weeks. You need to keep yourself in tip-top condition so that you can continue for the next 4 weeks, and then you've got a really good chance of passing. Okay? Also happy to send you a little motivational just to keep you going, so you'll get a little thing in your inbox, and hopefully that'll keep your brain in the right place. But you need to really take responsibility for that brain yourself. So thank you for all your lovely comments. Take good care, Lee, yourself. Stay safe, Atik, as well. So thank you very much, and I hope you found it useful. And you know, you should be very grateful to the ACCA for putting on such a great event that can help you, and you know, it's all for free. So thank you very much, and hopefully you give me some nice feedback. All right, I wish you all the very best of luck. Time management, keeping calm in your head so you're in the right condition are really, really important. Thank you, Chen. Thank you, May. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Heng. And hopefully next time I'm in Malaysia, I'll see you. Yep. Alrighty. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Asus. Thank you, Beatrice. Thanks for all your comments. Have a good day yourself. See you, Chen. Thank you. Thank you, Asus. Okay, okay. Well, that was fantastic. I am going to close this down, and I'm going to end the session. So take advantage of these interesting times. Stay safe, stay organized, and you'll be successful. And I wish you all the very best in your future career. Thank you. Good luck. Goodbye.